Cucumber, and we're here
for the 2024 Sort of Sportys.
All right, thank you, Bob the Tomato, and thank you, Larry the Cucumber. Hello, folks, I'm your host, Ryan Klinger, and welcome to the 2024 Sort of Sportys. We have a great show for you here tonight, the annual music, TV, movies, and this year we're even including books award show here on the Sort of Sports podcast. Very excited for tonight. I have hosted this show for 3 years running. Jamie Foxx did decline the invite to host the 2023 ones, but Larry the Cucumber we were able to snag, at least for the welcoming for this year. So that was great. Thank you to Larry, and he even brought up along Bob, and that was excellent. Bob, he offered his talents, just volunteered. So we only had the budget for Larry. Bob the Tomato came along. Very nice of them. So thank you, VeggieTales. There's never, ever, ever been a show like VeggieTales. So, all right, let's get into the show. We're going to go through music, books, TV, and film. And we're going to put some films in the Hall of Fame. There was a bit of discussion earlier in 2024 for there to be a television Hall of Fame, the Sort of Sporties this year. Adam Schefter reported it. And that is untrue. Sorry to say that, Shefty, but it was discussed. We here at the Sort of Sports podcast discussed it, and by that I mean, I talked to myself aloud for a while, and I decided that I don't think we're at the point where we need a Hall of Fame for TV shows yet. Even though this year I watched more TV shows than I have ever before, I still don't feel the need for it exactly. Maybe in the future we'll do something of the sort. But for the time being, there is no Sort of Sports podcast or Ryan Klinger Hall of Fame for television. We'll see. Maybe that might not always be the case. But for now, we're just keeping it with film. Let's look back on 2024 just in general. This has been the year that I uploaded the most podcasts ever. The first podcast of every year is, of course, the Sort of Sporties. So the Sort of Sporties, the 2023 ones, are episode 79, and this is episode 127. So we almost did 50 episodes in a year. I'm nearing the point where I'm, on average, doing one a week. Now, obviously, that's not true. There's a decent amount of time in the summer I take off. I did miss a week doing my weekly episodes here in December. So I try to be more consistent this year, try to do more episodes. I've really been enjoying doing this. I love doing this every year. I do look forward to sitting down and recording every single one of these podcasts. And for anybody who even gives these a listen, I very much appreciate it. This was the year where I started my YouTube channel, and I make videos over there. So if you're interested in that, make sure you check that out. I also make some shorts over there. It is kind of funny to me that I have run this podcast for over 4 years now. Yeah, that's right, because we started fall 2020. And so it's been over 4 years now of running the Sort of Sports podcast. And we have 67 subscribers, and I appreciate every one of you. But it was just funny because my YouTube channel I started this year has 833. And I was like, wow. Did not expect that. But also, technically, my YouTube channel has more videos because I've put out a lot of shorts over there. I have 183 videos over there. I only have 172 podcast episodes, including the Big Salad. So that's also part of it. There's just more content to go out there. Now that's a big piece. But it was just funny. As I was always really happy. I was like, oh, I got 67 subscribers. I'm very happy with that. And then my YouTube channel has 833. I was like, wow, that's a lot. Like, to me, that really felt like a big number. But I still really love doing the podcast. I'm more consistent on the podcast than I am over the YouTube channel. YouTube channel, I just kind of do it when inspiration strikes me. Whereas this, I'm very much planning out all the time what I want to do next on the podcast. I really, really do love doing this. So I appreciate anybody who tunes in. And let's get into the Sort of Sporties. I do want to clarify real quick. I didn't want that to sound like I was disappointed in my 67 subscribers over here. I'm not. I just thought it was funny because I remember when the YouTube channel crossed the podcast very quickly, I was like, oh, whoa, did not expect that. So that was just funny. It made the YouTube channel really feel like it grew fast for me because my standard was this. And so I was just like, wow, that was quick growth. So I've been pleasantly surprised with that. But you guys know me. I just enjoy doing this for the love of the game, I guess. I mean, I've done 127 episodes by myself, and I clearly just really like doing it. So let's start off with music here at this year's Sort of Sportys. So for those of you who will do a little refresher for the music, we started doing music in 2023. The way music works is we do an MVP, Rookie of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year, and Most Improved Player. Obviously, MVP, you can understand what that is. Rookie of the Year is an artist that I found this year that became a new favorite of mine. Sixth Man of the Year is the artist that I listened to a lot more in the second half of the year than I did in the first half. And Most Improved Player is an artist I was already aware of. Maybe I listened to them a little bit before, but this year they just really clicked with me and I listened to them a lot more than ever. As a refresher, let's read you last year's awards. MVP was Morgan Wallen. Rookie of the Year was SZA. Most Improved Player was John Party. And Sixth Man of the Year was Cody Johnson. First Team All 2023, which were the 5 songs that I felt like encapsulated my year the best. We had 7 Summers from Morgan Wallen. Talk to Me Right by Cody Johnson. Still Into You by Paramore. Why by Southall. And I Don't Know a Thing About Love by Cody Johnson. Let's get into the 2024 Sort of Sportys Music Awards. For MVP, there's no voter fatigue here. We're going back-to-back Morgan Wallen. Once again, the most popular country star in the world is also my favorite. He does, this year for Morgan Wallen, he didn't put out a lot of music I really liked out of his new stuff. I didn't really like Lies at all. He re-recorded some of his old tracks. I didn't love them. I thought they were fun. None of them really clicked with me yet. Maybe I'll go through and re-listen to some of them. Really, his only 2 big releases I really liked is Somebody to Love is good. Love Somebody, sorry. I don't know why I called it Somebody to Love. That's the Queen song. Love Somebody is good. I do like that song a lot. But really his best new release was he was on this Brooks and Dunn album where they re-record their old songs with a new artist. He was on that. And he did Neon Moon. And it's awesome. He is a really good Neon Moon. I really enjoy when Morgan Wallen actually does country. When he tries to be pop is when I don't enjoy it as much. There's some song like Broadway Girls. Like, what are we doing? That song, no. But Neon Moon, he's embracing more of his old school country roots, and that's why that song's good. Now, I bet you're sitting there and you're like, okay, so he just made the list because of Neon Moon covered? No, not at all. He made the list because he was my most listened to artist, which doesn't lock you up for MVP, but that is like having the scoring title. Like, it really, really helps you. Like being the league leader in passing yards and touchdowns, It is a big help. But realistically, this year, as far as music, isn't really that different from 2023. If I showed you my most listened to songs on Spotify from 2021, 2022, 2023, each year had a distinct vibe. This year, I kind of listened to like the same 200 songs really the whole year. I just kind of shuffled around which ones I listened to. Like, I guarantee the gap between my number 1 most listened to song and my 25th is not that wide as opposed to previous years. I really didn't hammer a lot of music, like a lot of the same music, but I didn't listen to a broad range, but I didn't hammer the same music. I listened to like the same, like I said, 50 to 100 to 200 songs. Like, I didn't really bounce around that much. Like, my main country playlist is really the majority of what I listened to this year. And while I like a lot more music than that, just happened to be a lot of times this year, that's what I was turning to. That's what I was listening to. And there wasn't a ton of new stuff in there. It's a lot of country songs I previously liked. A lot of that is Morgan Wallen. A lot of that is Cody Johnson. A lot of that's John Party. It's a lot of those guys that I've already listened to a lot. So this year's music was really not the most exciting year for me, but I greatly enjoyed it. I don't regret a piece of it. I loved it the whole way. But I am saying it's not exactly hot new. It's not something new. It's not something fresh, as the editor and the Kit Kittredge film stated. That movie's pretty good. Rookie of the Year, I got Zach Top. This is probably for a lot of people, too. He's really starting to break into popular country music right now. Found him around August, which is a little bit before he popped off, but he'd already been gaining some traction. A friend of mine known about him for months. Also put me on Braxton Keith, who I've been enjoying also. Grady Smith makes some YouTube videos about country music. He also put me on Braxton Keith. But Zach Top, he just sounds like George Strait, honestly. And he's good. Dirt Turns to Gold is my favorite song by him. It's elite. He's good, but that's not his only. He's got a lot of good stuff. My only concern with him is, can he find his own sound? Right now, he's kind of just doing a George Strait impression, which is fine. That's cool. That's all good and dandy. But if you're going to be in the top tier of country artists, like I think he wants to be, he's got to have a little bit of his own flavor to it. So hopefully he can find that. But supremely talented. Already has a great vibe. He really likes wearing the old school tall cowboy hats, and I like that too. So, Zach Top, Rookie of the Year. Sixth Man of the Year, it's my boy Kendrick Lamar. My second favorite rapper in the world. My favorite, of course, being Childish Gambino. Kendrick Lamar had a big year. I don't need to explain. He's performing at the Super Bowl. Like, I don't need to explain it to you. But coming off the success of Not Like Us and all that with Drake, really in the second half of the year, he was the rapper I listened to the most. What was funny was none of it was the Drake diss tracks except for Euphoria. I think Not Like Us is good for what it's worth. But Euphoria is my favorite. There ain't no way in hell it's Meet the Grams. That was an intense song. Euphoria was my favorite out of the three. I listen to Euphoria quite regularly. But just him being back in public consciousness made me go back and listen to a lot of Good Kid, Mad City, which I still think is his best album. Yeah, I had to think about that for a second. Like, Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst. That was a song I listened to a lot, which I know you're like, really? You listened to that like 8-minute song a lot? Yeah, I kind of did in the second half of the year. I was just feeling it. So Sixth Man of the Year, Kendrick Lamar. And then, of course, in November, he drops an album, and there were 4 songs on it I really liked. I really like Squabble Up. I really like TV Off, too. But my two favorites were both the songs with SZA, Luther, and Gloria. Those two were both really good. I really enjoyed those. So, Kendrick Lamar, Sixth Man of the Year. Most Improved Player. This isn't going to come as a shock if you've been keeping with the theme of the evening, and that's Post Malone. A friend of mine texted me back in August. Said, you need to listen to the Post Malone country album. It's legitimately really good. Now, I had went through a period where when I Had Some Help came out, I was like, this song's kind of ass. And then over the span of the summer, after hearing it on the radio, driving to work, I was like, you know what? This is undeniably a banger. And I kind of came full circle on it. And I got to the point where I really liked I've Had Some Help. And then my buddy told me that I needed to listen to the Post Malone country album, that he thought I'd really like it. And I did. I was a huge fan of F1 Trillion. I thought it was really good. My favorite, what ended up being my favorite song on the album was Pour Me a Drink with Blake Shelton. I just thought that was a fun country song. But Missing You Like This was also excellent. I liked the California Sober cover they did. What Don't Belong to Me was a lot more like actual, like old school Post Malone with like a country feel to it. Finer Things was fun. Guy for That I enjoyed. Really, the secret banger of this album is Who Needs You, which really isn't even a country song. It's like a Michael Bublé, like, jazzy love song. Give it a shot. It's pretty interesting. Even if you don't like it, it's undeniable that it's interesting that Post Malone made that song, and he like snuck it into the end of the album, and it's really good. And I didn't put it on my country playlist. I put it in like my jazzy love songs playlist with like Bill Withers, because that's what it's like. It's very, very different. So most improved player, Post Malone. I was a big fan of White Iverson in like 5th grade. Really liked that song. That was a banger before I went out for middle school basketball games. But it was that and I Spy. We're going triple platinum at that time. I mean, Congratulations was also good. But Post Malone doing a country album was hyped up for a while, and I legitimately really enjoyed it. And so he wins most improved player. First team all 2024. Here we go. First one, we got One Number Away by Luke Combs. This was my most played song. Really enjoy this song. Not a massive Luke Combs fan. Appreciate the fact he's a Carolina Panthers fan. This song is just his best song. If you guys are interested, oh my, I made a edit of Sadiq Bey to this song on my YouTube channel. So if you go to my channel, it's in there. It's called One Number a Bay. So if you're interested, check that out. I think this is just an excellent country song. Just really good. Up next, Birds of a Feather by Billie Eilish. You guys know how I do these music awards. It does not matter if it released in 2024 or not, unlike with movies and TV where it does. Music, it doesn't, just whatever I listen to. This song did come out in 2024. It was a huge hit for Billie Eilish, and I really liked it. I don't remember how I first heard it. I don't remember at all. But I remember at some point in the summer, I genuinely did like an hour car ride somewhere, and I think I listened to this song 5 times, and I enjoyed it every time. I just think it's really good. I'm not a Billie Eilish guy at all. I don't dislike her. It's just most of her stuff doesn't appeal to me. This song I really love, and I think I'll be listening to it for a long time. I think it's really good, and I really enjoyed it. Espresso is great for what it's worth. It didn't make the first team all 2024. But that song I also played a decent amount this year. I liked Espresso. Espresso is good. Please. Good. I mean, there's a reason Sabrina Carpenter blew up this year. She's got some good songs. It was funny because I was kind of early on this year. I got into like Nonsense and what's that song? Is it just Feather? Yeah, Feather by Sabrina Carpenter. And then like 2 months later, Espresso drops, and now she's like one of the biggest pop stars in the world. I just thought it was funny. It wasn't like, oh, I found her before. It was just funny. Like I was starting to get into her, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then boom, she like popped off, and I just thought it was funny how that worked out. But anyways, Birds of a Feather by Billie Eilish was awesome. Just a great song. Loved it. Next up, we got Cozy by Braxton Keith. Ooh, this was a good one. I really want Braxton Keith to make more music like this. He dropped a new album. I have not listened to it yet. It's the one reason, like a blue suit. It is not called I Blew Myself. That would be really funny. But it's not called that. The Cozy is great. I've said to some of my friends, Zach Top has a way better catalog than Braxton Keith, but Braxton Keith's best song is better than any Zach Top song. Cozy is awesome. Just excellent. It sounds old school with a bit of a modern twist to it. I don't know how to describe it. It just got it. It's just got that special sauce. I love Cozy. It's really fun. It was one of my favorite songs this year, and that's why it's first team all 2024. Up next, we got Good Directions by Billy Currington. I don't know where we were at. Actually, I do. We were at a pizza joint not that far from my house. I was with my buddies, and we were just messing around trying to entertain ourselves where we play. My buddy pulls out his phone, and he plays songs, and the first guy to name it wins. It's like just name that tune. We just play that with one guy having Spotify out and he's clicking songs while the other 2 guys guess it. And this came on and we were like, oh yeah, that song's great. Wow, yeah. Good Directions by Billy Currington is so good. So then I immediately just listened to it a ton for the rest of the year because it's great. Good Directions by Billy Currington is like one of the best country songs of the 2000s. It's awesome. So if you've never listened to it, you should. It's probably part of the reason I picture In the Stand. That's funny. I guess I should probably explain that. In the Stand, what I was talking about earlier this year, I picture Nick Andros as Billy Currington, which I don't know if really the best way to picture him, but that's just how I picture Nick, is Billy Currington for some reason. And him in that blue shirt, like off the album cover for Good Directions. That's, for some reason, the way I picture Nick in the Stand. Next up for First Team All 2024, our last song is Far From Any Road by the Handsome Family. You probably know this song. You don't realize it. It's the theme song to True Detective Season 1. And yes, that is a hint to when we go into television awards. We'll talk about True Detective more later, but in general, this song is awesome. It's slightly creepy. It's really good. It's just really good. Very old school sounding country song. It's got that like folksy to it. It kind of sounds like something I'd play in Django Unchained. Kind of sounds like a Jim Croce song. Kind of sounds like that. It's really good. Jim Croce's song on Django, so that makes sense. But Far From Any Road's really good. And when the woman comes in and sings, and she's kind of got like a creepier, she does like a little creepy tone. It's really great. And every time I listen to it, I'm like, yeah, this song is awesome. And just the entire thing is awesome. So Far From Any Road is epic and awesome. And an excellent theme to True Detective. I don't think they could have picked a better one. So that's it for music. Congratulations to all our award winners. And let's flip into books. This is the first year we've ever done books. I guess I should read to you all what I read in 2024. In March, I read Pronto by Elmore Leonard. I read All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison, 1984 by George Orwell. And then in May, I read Star Wars Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn, or Zahn, not sure. I think it's Zahn. And then in June, I read Mr. Paradise by Elmore Leonard. You guys know that's my favorite author. Eventually, I'll read all his books, but there's a lot. It's going to take me a while. After I read Mr. Paradise in June, I started reading The Stand. I have yet to finish it. I know you're like, wow, Ryan, I know the book's long, but that's 6 months. I understand that. I go through periods where I read 200 pages of The Stand, and then I go through periods where I don't read it for 3 weeks. I'm probably going to finish it within the next couple weeks of 2025, and then I'm going to flip into reading something new. I'm very excited. I think I do have my next book picked out. I'm very excited to read that. Every year I think my goal is to read one big book. This year it's going to be 11/22/63. It's going to be my goal, but I'll probably try to start it some point in the summer, give myself a decent amount of time to finish it. So I have 3 books out of the 6 I read to recommend. I know you're like, that's a lot, but I genuinely do have these ones to recommend. I haven't finished The Stand yet. So I guess it's eligible for next year. As far as books go, I don't know if I'm going to name like a best book. I just think I'll just give recommendations, because I feel like with books, it's so much more like, this is whatever you feel. Whereas, a film and TV, it's more like, this is the best. You should watch this. This was the best. I don't know if that makes sense, but to me it does. So that's how we're going to do books. Because with books, let's say I read 30 books in a year. If I got 10 recommendations, I got 10 recommendations. If I read 5 books in a year, I got 1 recommendation. I got 1 recommendation. We'll see what it is. But The Stand I would recommend, but I haven't technically finished it. It was the best book I read all year, if you want to have that. But I also think The Stand is maybe one of the best books I've ever read. So then there's that. Here's my 3 recommendations. The first one is Pronto by Elmore Leonard. Genevieve bought me this book for Christmas. It's a great gift. Actually, sorry. I think she actually bought it for my birthday, and then it came in late, so I got it later, which I think is why in my brain I tried to make it Christmas. It was my birthday. She got me this book for my birthday. It is one of Elmore Leonard's stories. It is about Raylan Givens, who, of course, is Elmore Leonard's most famous character, as he's the star of Justified, played by Timothy Olyphant. if you like Justified or anything like that, you're probably going to like this. Pronto is awesome. It's the first book I've read about Raylan Givens. I now own all of them. For Christmas, I ended up getting the rest of them. I just asked for Elmore Leonard books in general, and people bought me those, so I thought that was fun. I had read a short story, the Fire in the Hole short story, about Raylan Givens, but I never read a full novel. Pronto was super great. Pronto follows Raylan Givens, who was a U.S. Marshal who used to work in the Kentucky coal mines, who gets sent off to Miami. And the story, twists and turns in the classic Elmore Leonard way. You end up in Italy against Italian mobsters trying to save this Miami bookie and his stripper girlfriend, who is starting to fall in love with Raylan. That's basically the best pitch I can give you. Very Elmore Leonard, especially with the stripper girlfriend falling in love with Raylan, the old school cowboy. The thing that's so fun about Raylan Givens is that Elmore Leonard essentially took the old cowboy character, like the cowboy archetype, and just put him in modern day. He acts exactly like an old school cowboy. I won't give away the big moment in this novel. It is super cowboy of Raylan Givens, but that is in here if you know what I'm talking about. And that's what makes him so fun to read. Is he took this old school archetype of like the cowboy, picture the cowboy you have in your brain, like the quintessential cowboy. He just puts that in modern day, puts him up against modern people, modern mobsters, modern like a bookie, modern characters, and he plays off that. And it's super fun. Raylan Givens feels like a man out of time in a good way. I really enjoy that, and that's why he's Elmore's most famous character. He's awesome, and rest in peace to Elmore Leonard, of course, and I think it's quite fitting that his last book was titled Raylan, and it's the last one he wrote about late Raylan Givens, so I just think that's interesting how that worked out. So that's my first recommendation, Pronto by Elmore Leonard. It's about 250 pages. All Elmore Leonard books are around that range. You'll fly through it. If that sounds interesting, you should read it. 1984 is my next recommendation by George Orwell. If you look up best books of all time, it's probably on there. This is a book you may have read in school. I know my mother assigns it in class sometimes. I did not have to read it for school. But I ended up reading it, I think, in 3 days. Completely captivated by this book. This was a book I had always kind of wanted to read. I always thought it sounded interesting. My mother bought me a copy of it for Christmas last year. She was like, oh, we're going to read it in class. You should read it. She started reading it with her class. I started reading it around the same time, and I burnt through it. I stayed up till 2 in the morning reading this book. I would go to bed early just to read it. I remember waking up one morning and reading it for 2 hours. I read it, I think, in 3 days. I think it was one night and then 2 days. And I finished it like one evening. And I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's a literary classic for a reason. If you have any interest in this book, I don't think I need to tell you the premise of 1984. I'm pretty sure you know it. I just feel dumb explaining it, you know what I mean? Because I feel like the majority of people listen to this podcast probably know it. And if you're younger and you listen to this and you don't know, I would just Google it. It'll probably give you a better explanation than me. But yeah, it was awesome. It was really good. And you don't always, I like reading like literary pieces like this sometimes because it's like eating a salad, right? Like you feel good about yourself after eating it. Like it or not, when you go somewhere and you get a salad, you feel good about yourself. Like when you go to Olive Garden and you eat that big old salad they give you, you feel good about yourself after. You feel like, oh yeah, I'm doing right by myself. I ate a salad. That's how it is when you read these like literary classics, and that's not all I read. Obviously, you guys know I read a lot of Elmore Leonard. But when you read something like this, you feel good about yourself after. And they're not always good. And if they're not good, I stop reading them. I hate the Scarlet Letter. I don't think it's any... I understand it's got its value, but the way it's written, it's painful to read. Don't enjoy it at all. I would never read the Scarlet Letter for fun. I mean, hell, I couldn't even read it during school, and I had to. And my mother was the teacher, and I couldn't even get through it. She'd come home and be like, "Did you read any of that?" And I was like, "No, I can't. I don't like that book at all." This book is a book they teach in school, but is so damn good, you can read it by yourself and enjoy it. So 1984, I thought it would be very slow plotting, old school sci-fi. It is not that at all. It's fast-paced. It reads modern. Yeah, I mean, it reminded me of when I read Hunger Games, which was assigned to me in junior high. That's what it reminded me of reading, like that pace, which is very impressive. But maybe I was just really into the story. I don't know if everybody will feel this way, but that's the way I felt. I highly recommend 1984. Up next is the only comic book out of this year's recommendations, and that's All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison. I mean, Grant Morrison, just one of the best to ever do it. Like, he's really good at writing comics, like incredible. But All-Star Superman is, to me, the quintessential Superman comic. I don't know if I should say quintessential. I think the right word would be ultimate. I think it nails the character. It understands him perfectly. It understands Lois perfectly. It understands Lex perfectly. Morrison understands why Superman as a character works. There's a reason that James Gunn keeps citing this as heavy inspiration for the new film, which is why I have so much faith in that new film. This comic book understands Superman more so than any comic I think ever has. It's my favorite Superman comic. I think it is the best Superman comic. I got to continue to read more and more Superman comics because in my life I have read more Batman than I have Superman. I'm trying to make it so they're more equal because Superman is my favorite DC character. When I was younger, it was more Batman, so that's why I've read more Batman. Superman used to be second. Now Superman's one. It's Batman's two. The thing that's interesting about All-Star Superman, though, is I don't think it works if it's your first Superman comic. I know that's weird, but it's kind of like Dark Knight Returns in that way. Dark Knight Returns doesn't really work if that's your Batman. It works if you understand Batman and you're looking through it through that lens. Superman, All-Star Superman is the ultimate Superman comic and understands him better than any character. But I do not think it works if you're someone who's never really read a Superman comic and you just read it. I just don't think it works right. I think you have to, and maybe you don't have to read maybe not even a ton of comics, but you've got to, if you've like watched a lot of the animated series, right? Or like any of the animated stuff with him, I think is a good example. Then yeah, you get it. You understand, right? You can hop right in. But if you're somebody who's like, your only knowledge of Superman is a couple of the Christopher Reeve films, and then maybe you watch some of the new DC Extended Universe stuff, and you've seen a couple episodes of Superman animated series, but like you wouldn't consider yourself like a big Superman fan. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you gotta have a decent knowledge of the Blue Boy Scout to understand All-Star Superman. I'm not trying to put my nose up. I'm not trying to be like, oh, you can't read. If you want to go read it, you go read it. But I am saying I think it works better given a prior knowledge. At least in my mind. But All-Star Superman is really good. Like, really good. It's, yeah, very, very good. And, yeah, it's excellent. The moment in this comic where, I'm giving a slight spoiler here. Superman has a ring and he's going to propose to Lois. And you can know he's about to do it. And she is so tired she falls asleep. And he just kind of sighs and smiles and puts the ring away because she fell asleep. And then he never proposes again. It's the most Clark Kent thing that's ever happened in the history of the universe. And what I mean by that is it is so Superman. Because deep down he is still, a part of him is still that, nervous guy from Smallville. I think, there is a part of Clark that is Clark. the Clark as a persona isn't totally a persona. He isn't as supremely confident as when he's Superman. He's trying to be, but there is something about him that is still a little unsure of himself, and he is intimidated by Lois, and that's part of the reason it works. And it's so Superman to have planned a proposal, and as soon as it didn't work out the exact way he wanted to, he just abandoned ship and didn't propose. It's so Superman. That's when I was reading it, and I literally stopped, and I was like, wow, I'm reading the best Superman comic ever. That is officially all my book recommendations from 2024. We are now concluding that segment and going into the television awards for the 2024 Sort of Sportys. So let's start off first with the best TV show of 2024. So this is the show that released in 2024, that I watched in 2024. There were some strong candidates for this. I'm going to read to you all of the shows that I watched in 2024. This includes both shows that released in 2024 and shows that did not. Here we go. January, I started Ted Season 1, and I finished Ted Season 1. That was a 2024 release. I also started The Bachelor Season 28. In February, I started True Detective Season 1. I finished True Detective Season 1. I started The Gentleman Season 1, which was a 2024 show, and I finished The Gentleman Season 1, which was a 2024 show. And then in March, I finished The Bachelor Season 28. Was The Gentleman really February? I thought for sure The Gentleman was March. Yeah, it was March. I had it listed wrong. Okay, I started and finished The Gentleman show in 2024. That's what I thought. In April, I finished Invincible Season 2, which is a 2024 release. I finished Burn Notice Season 3. I started Burn Notice Season 4, and I started The Mandalorian Season 1. In June, I started The Boys Season 4, and I started The Boys Season 2. In August, I started Batman Cape Crusader, and I finished Batman Cape Crusader, which is a 2024 release. And I started X-Men 97, which is a 2024 release. In September, I finished X-Men 97, which is a 2024 release. And I started The Penguin, which is a 2024 release. In October, I finished Burn Notice Season 4, and I started Outer Banks Season 4, which is a 2024 release. In November, I finished Outer Banks Season 4, which is a 2024 release, and finished The Penguin, which was a 2024 release. And then I started The West Wing Season 1. In December, I started Creature Commandos, but that I think is going to count as 2025 because of the fact that whenever you your season finale is when I count it. So Creature Commandos will qualify for 2025 because the season finale comes out this week. No, sorry, next week. Today's Friday. Okay. So out of those, the eligible shows for best TV show of 2024 would be The Penguin, Outer Banks Season 4, X-Men 97, Batman Cape Crusader, Invincible Season 2, Bachelor Season 28, The Gentleman Season 1, and Ted Season 1. This year I watched more TV than ever before. I also greatly enjoyed watching a lot of Gossip Girl with Genevieve. I love that show. That show's awesome. This is tough. Early on this year I started watching the Ted show, and I was like, this is going to be hard to beat. I think this was the show of 2024. And I'm going to be honest, I honestly thought it was. If we did a top 5, I think Ted would be number 2 for me. I loved the Ted show. I wasn't planning on watching that. I've never even seen the Ted movies. I just saw clips online that were like, yo, people got to watch this Ted show. It's hilarious. I tried it. I loved it. I was blown away. I thought it was excellent, and I cannot wait for the second season. I think it's one of the best new comedies. I think it is the best new sitcom I've seen in a long time. I'm sure there's other stuff. People really like that Abbott Elementary show. I've never watched it. But as far as sitcoms I've watched, it's the best one I've seen in a very long time. I absolutely adore the Ted show. I think it's awesome. I wish there were more episodes, and I really hope Peacock understands that this is their golden goose. They got to pump out more of this baby. But regardless of all that, The Penguin also gave a great run as far as best show 2024. Batman Cape Crusader was very good. It was not ever going to win, but it was very good. But as you can see, there's one show that you're like, really? I thought he'd talk about this more. No, the reason I'm not talking about X-Men 97 yet is because it is the best TV show of 2024. I mean, at some point, Ted was awesome, right? But X-Men 97, as a massive X-Men fan, how could it not be? How could it not be the best TV show 2024 for me? I mean, how could it not? Bachelor Season 28, you were a lot of fun. But also, he should have picked Daisy. How could it not be X-Men 97? I have an X-Men 97 poster in my room because of this show. This show was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. The best X-Men adaptation ever made. Ever. I have no reservations on that. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. And you know what's funny is I never would have thought, hey, what X-Men thing should I watch? Just watch X-Men 97. And the main bad guy's Bastion. Like I never would have expected an X-Men thing where the main villain being Bastion worked so well. I remember watching it. I think it's the third or fourth. I think it's the fourth episode. The one where they go to the video game universe and all that with Jubilee and Sunspot, and it's just like, I was like, okay, what are we doing here? I thought, I was enjoying this, but I think they're gonna lose me. Like I really do. I'm like, I think it's over. This show is pretty good, but it looks like it's gonna be downhill the rest of the way. And then we reach episode 5. The Geonosia episode. That's where shit hits the fan. And that is when I was watching this show and I went, oh, so they just made the best X-Men thing ever. And I know you're thinking, wow, Ryan, you watched a Mutant Massacre and you thought this is the best show ever. And I think any good X-Men fan will tell you, whenever shit is bad, that's when the X-Men stuff is at its best. It's just a sad truth of the matter. And X-Men 97 is the best adaptation of the X-Men. It's better than any of the movies, and I really like some of those movies. I really do. I haven't watched a ton of the original series. I've seen some episodes, but I'm sure it's better than that because X-Men 97 is the best TV show 2024, a year that actually had a lot more competition than I thought it would. Like I said, I watched a lot more TV than I have ever before. And I'm sorry, Ted Show. You were awesome. And, I mean, The Penguin was really good, too. Don't get me wrong. Like, Penguin, Ted Show, those would be like the top 3. If you were interested in any of them, you should watch one of those 3. You really should. And they're all first seasons of their show, so you can just hop on in. But this was the best show they've ever made for the X-Men, and it's one of the best things Marvel's put out in general. And I hope this is what they're going to use to kind of base the MCU X-Men on, if they're going to get on track with these MCU X-Men. But what was the best TV show I watched in 2024? I read you everything I watched. West Wing Season 1 is not eligible because I have not finished it. There should be more competition than this, but there really wasn't. Last year, Burn Notice Season 2 won, and Season 2. I said 1 right after, and it messed me up. Burn Notice Season 2 won. This year, I honestly thought about Burn Notice Season 4 for a second, but if we're being honest, it really was no competition. It's True Detective Season 1. True Detective Season 1 isn't just the best TV show I watched in 2024. It might be the best TV show I've ever watched as far as a singular season. And what I mean by this is, this is a good example. The Stand is not my favorite book of all time. Might be in my top 15, 20, I don't know. Somewhere in there, maybe. But it is not my favorite book. But if somebody said, what's the best book you've ever read? I think I'd say The Stand. I really would. That's how I feel about True Detective Season 1. It might be in like my top 5 favorite shows ever. Never watched Season 2, 3, or 4. I've only watched the first. I know Season 2 apparently isn't very good, but it has Colin Farrell in it and Vince Vaughn, so I'm kind of curious. Even though it's not apparently good. Those two pieces alone intrigue me. Sorry, I had to yawn for a second. But True Detective Season 1, if you've seen this, you know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You guys know I love Matthew McConaughey, one of my favorite actors of all time. Woody Harrelson is also I really enjoy Woody Harrelson. He's not one of my favorites of all time or anything, but I really like Woody Harrelson. But this show came out during the peak of the McConaissance. McConaughey was really popping off and becoming just the guy. He made Interstellar the same year as this, which is an insane run. I think it's the best HBO show they've ever put out. I think they're still trying to make a True Detective season as good as this. All the other True Detective seasons are just trying to be this, I'm assuming, which is why they're not as good. I mean, granted, I don't know. I haven't watched them. But I'm assuming the problem with True Detective is this first season was so damn good, they kind of don't know what to do. And I don't know what for them to do either. I think this is just the best show, and I'll probably rewatch it again and again and again and not get tired of it because it's awesome. And if you watched it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't watched it, you are missing out. Down to the damn title sequence. It's awesome. I think it's the best show I've ever seen in my life as far as a singular season. And I absolutely adore it. My favorite show I watched this year. Absolutely perfect show. I will say Burn Notice I like more than this, but as far as a singular season of TV, it doesn't get any better than this. It's very lucky that Burn Notice Season 2 wasn't watched the same year as this. That'd been death battle. So that is the end of the television section of the Sort of Sportys. And now we move into film. Oh boy. I want you guys all to know that I legitimately spend hours of my life debating what I'm going to make Hall of Fame movies and what I'm not. I really care. Last year, we put in a massive Hall of Fame class. Massive. Most we've ever done. Now, do I have any problems with that? No, of course not. I really don't. I'm happy with what we did. I look back in all those movies. The only one I even slightly doubt is like Seven and Barbie. I really liked Barbie. I'm like, but am I still gonna find that movie that funny in 20 years? I think so. Think it's also a good measure of how much I enjoyed it at the time, which I think is good. And then Seven, the only one is the lust scene. Just, oof. It's like, is that scene so like uncomfortable for me that it ruins the experience? Like, yeah, but I love the rest of Seven so much. I actually feel good about the Barbie one. I really liked Barbie. Barbie is really good. I take that back. I'm not really concerned about that. Seven's really the only one that kind of concerns me. But I'm very happy that it's in the Hall of Fame. I really don't regret any of these choices. We put in 25 movies last year into the Hall of Fame. Breaking news, we are not putting 25 in this year. Before we get into this, let me summarize this year real quick. So 2023 was a year I watched a lot of movies I've been waiting to watch in my life. I had never sat down and watched Forrest Gump. Never. I'd never done that. I'd seen parts, but I never sat down and watched it all, right? I had never sat down and watched Seven. Never done that. I'd never seen Happy Gilmore whole way through. I was always told I'd like Superbad. I saw that. And then there was a lot of movies that we hadn't put in the Hall of Fame yet that I watched that year that I was like, yeah, this has to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy, Beverly Hills Cop 2, The Suicide Squad, Mr. Mom, Top Gun Maverick was eligible the year before. I didn't put it in, and I had to rectify that mistake and put it in last year. There was a lot of movies. Mad Max Fury Road, like there was a lot of movies. No, wait, last year was the first time I ever saw Mad Max Fury Road. Sorry, I thought I'd seen it more than that. Yeah, I watched that for the first time. There was a lot of movies that like had been hyped up to me a lot that I'd never seen before. Or I had seen and hadn't been put in the Hall of Fame yet that got put in last year. Movie of the year was Die Hard last year. Very happy with that selection. I think it's an absolute classic. But I had seen that, right? This year was a lot different than 2023 for me. I really took a lot more chances and just kind of watched weirder stuff. I'm going to be honest, like, in 2023, I did a lot of, like, okay, I love Quentin Tarantino, so I'm going to watch some Quentin Tarantino movies. I own them all now. This year, I only watched one new Quentin Tarantino movie. I'm kind of savoring because I'm concerned with the fact that the movie critic was canceled, and now he doesn't even know what his final film's going to be. I've talked before on this podcast, and I'm a little concerned about the fact this whole like one movie left thing I'm not a massive fan of from Quentin. Well, I like the idea and concept, but an actual carrying it out, I don't know if I love it. So I watched one new Quentin Tarantino movie, right? As far as Fincher went, I watched a lot of the Fincher movies I wanted to see. Fincher's one of my favorite directors. You guys know that. Watched a lot of the Fincher movies I wanted to see in 2023. There are a couple left I haven't gotten around to, like Zodiac. Haven't watched Zodiac yet. Haven't watched The Game yet. Pretty much at this point, I might as well watch all his movies. That's kind of what I'm going to do. But I'm going to be honest, I have no expectation that Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is going to be Hall of Famer. Doesn't really look like my thing. Mank doesn't really look like my thing either. I will watch them because they're Fincher. But I would be very surprised if I love them, right? There was only a couple movies this year where I was like, I like this director. This sounds like a lob for me. I should eat this up. Like this year I watched The Gentleman, like the movie, not just the show. Because I watched the movie before the show. Because I didn't know how much they tie in together. And I really enjoyed that show for what it's worth. If you like the movie, you should watch the show. Show was fun. Is it as good as the movie? No, but it was fun. The Gentleman did not make the Hall of Fame this year. I mean, they really like Guy Ritchie. Ritchie, I thought about kind of watching a lot more of his films this year, and I just didn't get around to it. I kind of watched a lot of weirder stuff. Like, we're going to go through, because I'll read you off every movie I watched this year. And I just kind of decided to take more risks. I watched a lot more movies on Tubi that were like, this is an interesting concept. Let's see what goes on here. Or I was like, oh, this movie looks fun. Let's try it. That's kind of what I did more this year. 2024 was more of a feeling it out type of year. But as far as the films that released in 2024, I thought it was an awesome year for movies. Awesome year. I have yet to see a complete unknown, Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Or Lord of the Rings, War of Rohirrim. I haven't seen that either. There was another December release that I thought looked cool. Oh, I just watched Juror Number 2 on New Year's Day. I watched it New Year's Day in the evening. So, there are still some releases in 2024 I haven't even watched yet, but out of the ones I watched, I was really happy. I thought it was an awesome year for movies. We do have more. This is the most Hall of Famers we've ever gotten from an actual year of ever before. you will get to that, obviously, when we do the Hall of Fame inductions. But we've never had this many movies from the actual release year go into the Hall of Fame. Like, I was just within the first year of watching it, I'm like, yeah, it's a Hall of Famer. Like, that movie's awesome. They're putting it in the Hall of Fame. It's not even a year old yet. That's a big deal. This year had that, and so I think that was part of the reason I took more chances on, like, the stuff I was watching for the first time, or because I was being a little more picky with the Hall of Fame. Because last year we put in 25, and like I said, I'm very happy with the 25 we put in. I do not regret putting any of them in. But I didn't want to get into a habit of just putting a ton in. I still wanted to be strict. And so I think this year I kind of just tried different things. And there were some movies that I thought I was going to eat up and they'd be Hall of Famers, and they weren't. I watched Heat, and I cut a whole podcast about how I liked Heat, but I didn't love it. I watched the Miami Vice movie from Michael Mann, and I liked it, but I didn't love it. There are elements I really enjoyed. Really love Colin Farrell's performance. I feel like my boy Jamie misses the mark in that movie. I really do. So yeah, there was a lot of movies like that where I liked bits and pieces, but as an overall product, it was missing something for me. And so it's a smaller Hall of Fame class. I'm very comfortable with that. I'm actually kind of happy with that, for being honest. It just kind of the way the year took shape. About halfway through the year, I started looking around, and I'm like, wow, this has kind of been a year of me just kind of trying different things. I don't know how to describe it. I don't know. I was like trying. I was just watching some different stuff. Like, I was looking for an underrated classic, and I found some. But I mean, the thing is, when you look for an underrated classic, is you're gonna watch a lot of mid movies. You're gonna watch a lot of movies that are like, oh, this was good, but this kind of ruined it. Whereas when you're just watching movies that everybody lists as some of the best movies ever made, well, then of course they're going to be bangers. Like, there's a reason those are considered some of the best movies ever made. You know, I had a year where I watched, let's go through last year's Hall of Fame class, right? Let's do the 2023 Hall of Fame class real quick. Point this out, right? Last year's Hall of Fame class, I'm just going to cherry pick some, right? Like 7, Mad Max Fury Road, Social Network, Reservoir Dogs, Die Hard. Those movies, Forrest Gump, those movies are probably all in the top 50 best movies of the last 50 years. Every single one of those is probably in there. So it's like, of course, I'm going to make some Hall of Famers. That's not even everything I watched last year. So I just think it's interesting the way the year kind of formed. It was a different vibe in 2023, and I was happy with the way it went. But I just think I wanted to point that out before we get into things. Last thing, for reference, I don't count the 3 Christmas movies my family watch every year as Hall of Fame, but nor do I put them into what I watched this year. Let me explain how the Hall of Fame works in case anybody's new here. If you're new here and you decided to listen to this episode or maybe you've started listening to me this year and this is the first time you've followed a Sort of Sportys, hello, you're probably very caught off guard. You're like, wow, I came here to listen to this dude talk about Bryce Young, and we've spent over an hour talking about how much he liked All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison. This is why it's called the Sort of Sports Podcast. Hopefully you've been enjoying. But the way it works is, every time I watch a movie, I write down in my notes app what month I watched it, and then if it released in the year that I'm watching it. So if it was a 2024 release, I put in parentheses 2024. If it's anything but a 2024 release, I just write down the title. That movie at the end of the year is eligible for the Hall of Fame. If you get put into the Hall of Fame, you are considered, and some of my favorite movies of all time. I would like to, I think, eventually own all of my Hall of Fame movies on Blu-ray. I think that'd be really cool. I already own the majority of them on Blu-ray or DVD because I like those movies. So no wonder I own them. But for Christmas, I got like some of these movies that we're gonna list. Actually, like I got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 on Blu-ray this year. I asked for it because I was like, yeah, I want to own that movie. So when I read you the list of how many movies I watched this year, it's not completely accurate because once something's in the Hall of Fame, for example, Beverly Hills Cop, my favorite movie of all time, is in the Hall of Fame. When I watch Beverly Hills Cop every year on my birthday, as I do for tradition, I've done that, 4 years now? Yeah, I think it's the 4th year I've done that. I don't write down that I watch Beverly Hills Cop. Because once you're in the Hall of Fame, you are no longer written down. Now, let's say The Matrix, which is I've watched before. Let's say I watch The Matrix this year, and Matrix does not go in the Hall of Fame. That means if I watch The Matrix in 2025, it is once again eligible to be in the Hall of Fame. You are eligible to be in the Hall of Fame every single year I watch you until you're put in. So if I watch The Matrix every single year, it's eligible in the Hall of Fame every single year. But once it's in, I don't write down that I watched The Matrix. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully I explained that well. I know I'm talking kind of fast. I'm getting excited to announce the Hall of Famers for this year. In 2022, I watched 43 movies. Now, I will say I don't think that's the most accurate, just because I started doing the Notes app and keeping track of the movies about halfway through the year. So I had to remember what I watched early on in the year. I do think I missed a couple. In 2023, I watched 97 movies. I don't think I'll ever break that stat. Keep in mind that is not 100% accurate, because I'm not counting a rewatch of Beverly Hills Cop or Moneyball or any Indiana Jones film, and I know for a fact I watched all three of those, some in 2023. So I watched over 100 movies in 2023. That is just counting Hall of Fame eligible films. This year, technically last year, we're recording this in 2025, of course. In 2024, I watched 77 movies. Once again, that's talking about Hall of Fame eligible films. That does not count the 3 Christmas movies my family watches every year, along with films that are always already in the Hall of Fame. Like this year, I watched Beverly Hills Cop, like always, on my birthday, and I did not write it down because it's already in the Hall of Fame. I was pleasantly surprised I watched 77 movies. I feel like that's a lot, given the fact that I didn't think I'd ever come close to 2023. 77's a lot. Really is. For reference, what are the 3 Christmas movies your family always watches? Home Alone, Christmas Vacation, Christmas Story. The best 3. That's the answer. I do love the animated, the old animated Grinch, like the one from the 60s. The one with, You're a Mean One. That one. That old school. Well, I guess that song's in the Jim Carrey one too, but the original Grinch is awesome, so that's really good too. Maybe eventually I'll decide against it, and put them in the Hall of Fame if I want to talk about them, but I didn't even feel like talking about it. Like, I just didn't. I don't know. Those 3 would all go in the Hall of Fame anyway, so I just don't have any interest in doing it. I don't know. Maybe I will eventually. Let's start off with the best movies of 2024. I'm going to do my top 5, and then I do have some honorable mentions, as always. And then we'll go into the best movies I watched in 2024. So top 5 best movies of 2024. These are films that released in 2024. Some of these films will be going into the Hall of Fame. Which ones? We'll find out here shortly. So here are my best movies of 2024. Coming in at number 5, we have The Bike Riders. This movie was a pleasant surprise. I saw a trailer for it fall 2023. I thought that looks like something my mom would like. Tom Hardy, Austin Butler. She became a big fan of him coming off of Elvis. I told her, I was like, hey, you might want to go see that. I ended up going with her. Me and my girlfriend went with her, and we all really liked it. My mom kind of fell in love with Jodie Comer's performance. She definitely steals the show in this film. She's awesome in it. It was one of those, I thought it'd be kind of a vehicle, a motorcycle, to be exact, as far as the vehicle, for an Austin Butler star performance, even though he already is a star, but just like building upon it. And it really was a Jodie Comer star-making performance. She 100% was the lead of this, and she was really good, and I really enjoyed her in it. And she's going to be in 28 Years Later this year in 2025, and hopefully she has a large role in that, and she can continue to build upon this performance. This movie didn't make a lot of money. Had a moved release date. It was supposed to come out in December 2023. It got moved. I was really happy it got moved to the summer. Thought it would do a little better. It didn't. I think this is one that maybe could eventually, over time, people appreciate as an underrated classic. I think it's really good. It was really good. I really enjoyed what it was doing. I think I'm going to buy it and watch it a lot. Just kind of a fun, based on a true story movie. I just really liked it. I don't really have anything else to say other than the fact that it was good and I enjoyed it. And feels like a movie I would watch a lot, you know? Yeah, I just really enjoyed it. Just kind of an old school fun, not fun, but like just an old school good drama. I don't think it's trying to do too much. I kind of appreciate that. Like, it's not being overly serious and trying to win an Oscar, but it's also like not goofy and not taking itself seriously. It just kind of is what it is, and it was good. That's what it is. I forgot to mention my honorable mentions. Those are Furiosa, which was awesome. Really enjoyed Furiosa. It would have been top 5, except for the fact that there was a movie that came out in November that is going to be at the 4 spot. It is not Wicked. I have not seen Wicked. And then The Fall Guy, another honorable mention. I was really excited for The Fall Guy. I really enjoyed it. I think I'll watch it a decent amount more in my life. I just wanted it to be better than it was. I think it was my thing. I think I kind of hyped it up a little too much in my mind. Definitely a movie that I would really enjoy when I was younger, kind of like how I loved the movie Sahara, because I watched so much when I was younger. You're going to talk about a Matthew McConaughey performance. Whoo-wee! See, I knew McConaughey was a star before everybody else because I watched Sahara when I was younger. But I don't even think Fall Guys is as good as Sahara, honestly. Sahara's gas, but Fall Guy's fun. I think Fall Guy's good. And Emily Blunt is great in it. She's good. So, her and Ryan Gosling make it fun. The guy from Atlanta is in it too. He's good with what he's doing. Aaron Taylor Johnson's in it, and I just don't think Aaron Taylor Johnson was really it. I think he just kind of lacks like the it factor. I don't know how to describe it. I don't hate Aaron Taylor Johnson or anything. Like don't get it confused. It's just like I just think he's missing something. I just think he's kind of sauceless. I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't think he's a good enough actor to be like an Oscar actor guy, but I don't think he has like that movie star quality to make him special either. Like I just think he's kind of whatever. I don't really think he's got it. I think they're really trying to make him something, and I'm like, I just don't think he's that. You know? I don't know. Like people want him to be James Bond. I'm like, why? I don't really think he's that interesting. I don't think he should be James Bond. Really don't. Anyways, that was the Fall Guy. Fall Guy was fun. The thing is, the Fall Guy. If you want to watch the Fall Guy, go watch it. You'll like it. If you think it looks fun, it is what you think it's going to be. I think I just wanted it to be even better than it was. But it was good for what it's worth. I think also the third act I have a couple problems with. I think I like the first and second act of the film more than the third. Coming in at number 4 of my top 5 films of 2024 is Gladiator 2. I've been waiting to talk about this one. You guys, not you guys, but like people, maybe not. I mean, I don't know you personally, unless you're G or my mom or my sister, which I do know personally, and I know for a fact only one of you has seen this movie. And they really liked it. It was Genevieve. Because she knows ball. I mean, this movie's gas. People were dogging on this movie, and they're like, oh, it's nowhere near the masterpiece. I think the first Gladiator's good. I don't think it's, like, the greatest film ever created. And people were acting like the first... I mean, I understand it won Best Picture and all that. But, like, Raiders of the Lost Ark is a better movie than that. The Raiders of the Lost Ark drives me nuts because it was nominated for Best Picture. What? You know what? That's the real question. What won Best Picture that year? Like, what really beat Raiders of the Lost Ark? Chariots of Fire. I don't know what the hell that is. That movie better be the best damn movie of all time because I don't know how in the hell it beat Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is the thing that always bothers me about Raiders of the Lost Ark is if you look it up, if you look up any list on the internet, it's like best 50 films of all time. I'm guarantee you Raiders of the Lost Ark is on there. I guarantee it. And you talk to any big director, they're going to say it's like an incredible film that does all these things right. I mean, Steven Soderbergh put the score of The Social Network over it, muted the entire film, put it in black and white, and put it on his website for free to show about the fact that the film has some of the best blocking, like the movement of the characters in any film, period. That's the thing with Spielberg is like, when you look at Spielberg has all these movies that are popular, but when you actually look at what he's doing from like a technical perspective, he might just be like the GOAT. Like he's, and I know some people consider him the GOAT, and for good reason. Like you forget how good Spielberg is because even in a movie like Jurassic Park, which is like an incredibly successful franchise that makes oodles of money every time they put out a new movie, and everyone's seen it. That movie's a technical masterpiece. Like, the way it's shot, like, just everything is so good, but you take it for granted because Steven Spielberg's making a big blockbuster movie. And, you feel like you got to appreciate the technical elements more in, like, a big Oscar-winning piece like a Schindler's List or a Saving Private Ryan. But, like, Raiders of the Lost Ark still has all those awesome technical pieces. It just happens to be in one of the most gas movies ever made. Raiders of the Lost Ark is better than Gladiator 1. Everybody was acting like Gladiator 1 is like this masterpiece of film. And I like Ridley Scott. I think Gladiator 1 is really good. Don't get me wrong. I think Gladiator 2 is just as good. I think we forget about the fact that Gladiator 1 at its core is still a goofy-ass Gladiator movie. And Gladiator 2 is the sequel to that goofy-ass Gladiator movie. And I think everybody's gotten a little too caught up in the fact that they like Gladiator and the fact it's been out for 24 years and kind of forgot about the fact it's kind of a goofy-ass movie. And he made a bit of a goofy-ass sequel where there's sharks in the Colosseum and, the plot isn't exactly the most cohesive and the character motivations aren't the most clear. He's just making a fun movie that's awesome, right? He's just going, what's the coolest thing I can do here? And I understand Lucius is the most fleshed out character, but I really enjoyed it for what it was. I really did. And I think people have kind of twisted in their mind what the first Gladiator is. You're probably wondering, why did you go on this tangent about Raiders of the Lost Ark? I watched that movie last night. You guys know, when I was younger, my favorite movie of all time was Raiders of the Lost Ark. Then I watched a Lego movie, and I was like, well, those are just my two favorites. And then I watched, I really liked Jurassic World when I was younger. I've kind of grown out of that. But Jurassic World was like third or fourth for a bit there, along with Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy has stayed. It's still very high up for me. Then I, watched Moneyball, and Spider-Man was one of my favorites too. I forgot about that. But like when I was younger, it was Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then I watched the Spider-Mans with Tobey Maguire, and I watched the Lego Movie, and those were like my favorites. And then Guardians of the Galaxy, then Jurassic World for a bit, and I was like, no, that's not. Kind of killed that one off. And then Moneyball came in, and then I watched Beverly Hills Cop, and I was like, oh, that's probably up there for like Raiders of the Lost Ark and Lego Movie, and then kind of had the definitive formation of what my favorites were. I just love getting an opportunity to talk about Raiders of the Lost Ark at any given moment. So that's why we did that, essentially. But I did want to point out that it is better than the first Gladiator, just put it in perspective. But Gladiator 2, Denzel is doing a great performance in this. Like, such a fun Denzel performance. Not like a great, like, Oscar, give him an Oscar performance, but he's commanding the screen at every moment. He's the most interesting character. He essentially did Gladiator 2 political boogaloo, and I was here for it. He made dope-ass fights in the Coliseum with political intrigue as the backstory. Not the backstory as in, like, behind, like, I meant backstory as in, like, story behind the scenes, not backstory as in, like, that was a bad use of words. But he's doing a political intrigue plot in the background, and I loved that. I thought that was super fun. And maybe I need to rewatch the first Gladiator. That might be something I try to do in 2025. If I'm feeling it, I will. But I think Gladiator 2 is really good. And I think anybody who is like dogging on this movie, I think you're missing the mark. I think Ridley Scott is trying to make a big epic that is just fun to watch. And going into it believing it's going to be like a Best Picture winner, I think is just the wrong mindset. I think part of the reason Gladiator 1 is so good is because I don't think too many people went into it thinking it's a Best Picture winner. People just went in looking for an interesting film, and then they came out going, wow, that movie was awesome. And thus it won Best Picture because everybody kind of agreed, yeah, that movie rocks. Whereas with this movie, people were holding it to like this Best Picture winner standard when I think he was just trying to make another movie that rocks. And he did. I think people were looking for the wrong things in this movie. I think people missed the mark. It is no surprise to me that this was Christopher Nolan's favorite film of this year because this movie's gas and Nolan knows ball. And that Odyssey movie is going to be so damn good. I can't wait for that. So, Gladiator 2 is the fourth best movie from this year. Hell, I almost put it 3, but the third one is better, and it's got my guy Glenn Powell in it. So, let's get into number 3. Oh, wait. Quick thing for Gladiator 2. Also, I know everybody wanted a Paul Mescal star-making performance in this. I went in this movie wanting great action fights, a Paul Mescal star-making performance. Denzel will steal the show. And like a fun, just like fun, right? It did everything except the Paul Mescal star-making performance. I thought we got like 70% there. But I also don't know if Paul Mescal really wants to be like a Butler or a Chalamet. Like I know Jacob Elordi wants to be there. He's going to be in this Frankenstein movie this year. And I think he's trying to be in that Butler Chalamet range. I don't think Paul Mescal wants to do that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know if that's really his goal. But I think that's what a lot of people were putting the pressure of this movie on. Oh, and going into this movie, I wanted Pedro's character to be cool. And Pedro's character might have been my favorite in the movie other than Denzel's. Denzel steals the show, but Pedro's character was really interesting too. I really liked what Pedro was doing. He was great. That was a very interesting character. The marketing made it seem like he was the main bad guy, and then he wasn't. And I was like, oh, well, I like what they did actually more. That was cool. Stupidest part of the movie was when she presses the stone on the wall, and it does like a Scooby-Doo like secret passage. That shit was hilarious. Yeah, the movie was gas. If you watch it with if your dad is into this type of stuff, like he'll like it. My dad is not into this type of stuff. My mom's going to say this is too violent. I thought it was gas. This is a movie I might buy on Blu-ray and watch like 10 times. I think it's more rewatchable than the first Gladiator 2, to be honest. So that's where I sit. I thought this movie was gas. I loved it. I really liked Gladiator 2. I debated putting it in the Hall of Fame. Thought it was that damn good. Coming in at number 3, it's Twisters, baby. Whoo-wee! Oh, man. I wish this movie was an even bigger hit. It didn't really do that well overseas. It was really pretty successful here in the U.S. This was the year Glenn Powell and me. This was the year I pretty much figured out he's my guy. I've talked about him on numerous podcasts, and I cannot wait for his upcoming slate. I need to watch Everybody Wants Some. I need to watch Set It Up. I'm just kind of trying to go through all his major roles. He was in Hitman this year, which, as you can see, is not here in the best films of 2024. I wanted Hitman to be better. I really did. Hitman wasn't a bad movie by any chance, but it was kind of I kind of wanted it to be Glenn Powell's Fugitive before I knew what it was, right? I wanted it to be Glenn Powell's Fugitive, where you're like, wow, you can really act, and this is like an intense drama. And it wasn't that at all. It was kind of like a fun crime romp, a little bit in the Elmore Leonard vein. I like Glenn's performance in a lot. He was great. I think I just underrated how much Linklater it would be, to be honest. And that's not a bad thing by any stretch of the word. Linklater's obviously made some great films, but I think I underrated like how quirky and how much it would be like that. I thought it was going to be a lot more of just like a crime drama, or like, you know what I mean? A lot more contemporary than what it was, which is fine. I like the movie. Like, once I figured out what the movie was doing, I was like, oh, this is pretty good. Like, this isn't what I wanted it to be, and that's okay. That's not what I wanted it to be. But taking it at face value, it's still not what I wanted it to be. I think would have been better. Yeah, what I wanted it to be would have been better what they made. No, but once I kind of accepted that Hitman wasn't what I thought it was going to be, I was like, this is pretty good. I enjoyed it. I might watch it again, but it wasn't. Oh, I haven't seen Carry On either from 2024. I think Carry On looks good. It's on Netflix. Just speaking of another Netflix film. But this was the year of Glenn Powell. Anyone But You popped off late 2023 and carried over into 2024. He had this come out, and then he had, this is Twister, sorry. He had Hitman come out, and then he had this come out in July. This was big for him. He steals a show in this movie. I love the fact that Corn Sweat's in this. I think it's really fun. In like 15 years, we look back and like, oh yeah, David Corn Sweat's in that. He's just kind of an ass. It's just funny. I loved Corn Sweat in this. I remember it being in theater. I turned to Genevieve. I was like, oh my gosh, it's Superman. That guy's going to be Superman. And this is like the biggest role. I mean, this is the only role I've ever seen him in. This is pretty crazy. I love the fact they're casting like smaller actors in the DCU. That's so fun. I say smaller actors, and Alan Ritchson I think is going to end up being Batman in the DCU, and he's just like the biggest man to ever exist. He's huge. But Glenn does make this movie. I love the fact that he literally, apparently is just reading my dream journal, because he says his goal is to just make movies that people want to go see because he's in them, and that's my plan, is every single movie he makes forever I will go see. He is my guy. I completely trust in his ability to pick these scripts, and he's going to be in The Running Man next year, and you guys are going to see how high I have that ranked my most anticipated films. If he wasn't in that, probably wouldn't even crack the list for most anticipated films 2025. Very excited for this Chad Powers show just because he's in it. I just think he's got it. There's just something about him that I really like. I remember watching him in Top Gun Maverick and then going, oh, yeah, I like that guy in Hidden Figures. He's good. I really, really would like to see him do more. And then after Anyone But You, I feel like everybody... I remember seeing the trailer for Anyone But You, and I was like, oh, he's in a rom-com with the girl from Euphoria. Yeah, I'll watch that. That looks fun. And then little did I know that would be a massive success, and pretty much everyone would be like me and go, yeah, I like this guy. Let's see him in more. And now he is on a trajectory to be potentially my generation's Tom Cruise, which I would love. Hopefully he doesn't... You guys know I obviously love like the franchise films. I obviously love the DC movies, and I love the Marvel movies, and I love all these, there's other franchises that are very successful, like Jurassic Park World, all that stuff. I love that type of stuff. I don't want Glenn to get involved with any of them. I know a lot of people want him to be Booster Gold in the DCU, and even a part of me is like, maybe not, right? Like, just kind of let him do... I think part of the fun of Cruise is the fact that he's never gotten involved. I think Cruise would lose a little some of that magic if he was Iron Man. I mean, granted, I think that just wouldn't work at all in general. But let's say Cruise got cast as, like, I don't know. I don't even know, like, a character that would work for him. But you know what I mean. Like, if Cruise was just in a Marvel movie as a character, I just think I wouldn't feel right. I think there's something to it. And I kind of like the fact that Glenn is currently staying away from that type of stuff. And I kind of want it to continue. And if he is going to be in one of those, maybe just like a smaller role, you pop in, pop out. But to be honest, I'd like for him to stay away, make other stuff that people want to go see because he's in it. He's apparently got like a Fatal Attraction type movie coming up. Get Sydney Sweeney to be in it, and it'll make a shitload of money. Him and Sydney Sweeney re-teaming up, except now it's for like a Fatal Attraction type movie. That would be awesome. That'd be awesome. So, I know you're like, wow, you've yet to talk about Twisters. Yeah, I just did like 5 minutes on Glenn Powell. Twisters. This movie was exactly what I wanted it to be. It was Glenn Powell having a great time in a fun movie. I mean, credit to Daisy Edgar Jones also. She does well. In her role, she is the lead. Glenn Powell just kind of comes in as the side character, which is a better role for his character. It doesn't really work if he's the lead. So Daisy Edgar Jones, props to you. And she has more like actual acting she has to do. But Glenn steals the show here for obvious reasons. The charisma just pops off the screen in this movie. When he rolls up and they're playing 8-11 Oklahoma and he pops out with his cowboy hat, awesome. This is a movie that I'm probably going to watch a ton. It should be if I'm AMC right now, like I am 100% trying to get the TV deals to this. Or like if I'm like I'd go like triple platinum on AMC. Like this movie should be running cable a shitload. It's really fun. Good old fashioned blockbuster. I understand it's technically a remake or a sequel or a legacy sequel. But it basically is an original film. It's just using the Twisters IP for some reason, to be honest. But I really loved it. I really liked it a lot. I don't know why I said I really loved it, and then I said I really liked it. But I really loved this movie. Once again, if Glenn wasn't in it, I don't know if it gets as high. I just really liked what he was doing in this movie, and I went and saw it partially because of him. And that's no offense to Daisy Edgar Jones, the rest of the cast. I came for Glenn. He killed it. Movie was good. Thus, it's third best movie from this year. Really like Twisters. Twisters is one of those, I think anybody could watch this movie and like it. It's gas. It's just a good old-fashioned gas movie. And I love the fact that we're making those because that's good. And you can walk into this not knowing anything about any of the other Twisters movies, and you can enjoy it. And I think those are always good movies to have. Let's get into number 2, the second best movie from this year, a movie that I didn't even want to see, and it is the second best film from this year. And that movie is Challengers. Yeah, that's right. The gay tennis movie. This movie was awesome. Never seen a Luca film. Let me break it down for you. So, Genevieve and I are at the theater. Forget what movie we're seeing. And we see a trailer for this. And I turn to her and I go, oh my gosh. As the next trailer starting. And she's like, what? And I was like, that movie's going to be like the next Saltburn, where it's just kind of horny and it's shot well, but it's weird. And because it's shot well, combined with the fact it's horny and weird, people are going to, like, younger people are going to be like, oh, this is cinema. This is art. Like, this is, just because of the fact it's shot well, it's horny and weird, people are going to assume that makes it good. And there's attractive people in it, so that'll draw people that are our age in. And this is going to be the new Saltburn because Zendaya's in it, and it's shot well, and they make her look all hot, and it's just going to be horny and weird. And thus, people are going to like this movie. And she's like, well, I want to see it. And I was like, ugh. So, fast forward to May, and I wanted to go see The Fall Guy. She really wanted to see Challengers. I end up saying, fine. We'll see Challengers. We'll see Fall Guy. Well, actually, I take it back. It was the week before Fall Guy came out. We were like, I want to go to the theater. And I was like, well, but there's nothing I want to see. She's like, well, I want to see that Challengers movies anyway. Let's go. I said, fine. Go to Challengers. I think I liked it more than she did. She enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved it. I remember I tweeted out something. It's like, just saw Challengers. Weird, horny-ass cinema is so back. And it was. And it was awesome. This movie was awesome. Now, I'm not going to watch this movie with my mother. I will say that. I would not watch this movie with either of your parents in the room. Very horny movie. But a movie's gas. The best tennis movie? Granted, the only tennis movie I've ever seen in my life. Music's awesome. Shot beautifully. I mean, I love whatever Josh O'Connor, Mike Faced. I love what they're doing in this. It essentially is a movie built around the fact that they're like, yeah, you like Zendaya? Well, guess what? These two dudes are willing to ruin their friendship over the fact they both want to bang her. You want to watch this movie? Also, it's about tennis. That's essentially the pitch for this. But then you watch the whole movie and you're like, wait a minute. I think the two guys are actually gay for each other. And then I thought about the fact, I was like, oh, it's Luca that directed this. Of course that's the message. Of course it is. I was like, wow. He threw me for a loop. He drew me in. He probably drew a lot of guys in like me. A lot of straight guys like me probably rolled into this movie ready for like the Zendaya, you know what I mean? You know, oh, we getting a threesome scene in this? It's probably what he's drawing us in, right? And then it ends up being like, wait a minute, I think these two dudes are supposed to date each other. I think that's what's supposed to go on here. Now, granted, that is never outright stated. That is all in the subtext. But I think that's the point. And that was quite the interesting twist once I figured that out. And it hit me about 10 minutes after walking out of the theater. I was at dinner, and I look up at Genevieve, and I go, wait a minute. I think I figured this movie out. I think what this is trying to say. She's like, yeah, I think you're right. I'm like, that's, wow. What a twist. I loved this movie. I just thought this movie was awesome. I don't know. There's just, I don't even know how to describe it. I just thought it was awesome. Yeah. If you're if you're under the age of like 30 and interested in this movie, you'll probably like it. I think anybody older than that might be like, what the hell is this? But I think it's awesome. I think this movie's great. I loved it. I loved Challengers. So good. There was a point where I debated putting this number one. Seriously. I loved it that much. But number one, of course, is going to be Dune Part 2. I mean, come on. Dune Part 2, one of the best sci-fi movies ever made. This was what I wanted. Look, Dune Part 1 is good, right? Dune Part 1 is not in the Hall of Fame. I think it's no secret to tell you that we're going to put this movie in the Hall of Fame later. When I was home for Dune Part 2 is I just wanted it. Dune Part 1 kind of came and went a little bit culturally. People that like movies, of course, knew of it. But the general public, it wasn't like a pop culture thing, right? After this movie, it was. You would see people on the internet calling people Lisan al-Gaib when they predict something. That's still a joke that happens. Chalamet is just like referred to as Lisan al-Gaib. Like when you're on game day and made like great picks, they're like, of course, he's a Lisan al-Gaib. And it became culturally significant, and I loved that. I absolutely loved that. And I really wanted to see that from this. This one is just bigger and better than Dune 1. And you have to have Dune Part 1 to make all this make sense. It's essentially like setting all this up. And I don't have any problems with Dune Part 1. It's just the nature of the story. The second part is just so much better. And it just works better for a film. This is incredible. And the fact that people are watching this, and like my mom read the book, and she kind of explained to me how it rolls. So I knew that Paul Atreides was about to become a big bad boy. And the fact they pulled that off in this movie without being so black and white. Like it doesn't just like switch flips and you're like, oh, Paul's a bad guy now. His eyes went red. You know, like, I mean, obviously his eyes don't go red, but you know what I mean. Like it doesn't just do like a dumb like twist like that. It's like as you're watching it, you're like, you're rooting for Paul. And then you kind of get to the scene where he's like, I'm your leader and la la la. And you're like, wait a minute, is this guy? Wait a minute. I don't know if I like him now. And then like you get to the point where he kills Fuad Ratha and you're like, wait a minute. I know you, like, I don't like him either, but I don't know if I really like you that much. And then Chani runs away and you're like, yeah, I would run away. Like, what the hell? This guy, he's trying to marry her now? He's trying to marry Florence Pugh now? What are we doing? Why is Christopher Walken in this movie randomly? That's probably what you're thinking. I think Dune Part 3 is going to be awesome. I'm assuming this is going to be like a Lord of the Rings situation where they're kind of waiting on giving it all the Oscars on the third one. It doesn't seem that this one's going to win Best Picture. I don't know how Part 3 could be better than this. I think this movie's incredible. I do think they hyped it up a little too much when they said that Austin Butler as Fuad Ratha was as good as Heath Ledger as Joker. Don't say that about any movie performance ever, because that's like one of the most iconic movie villain performances of all time. Like it's like Hans Gruber like level, like Alan Rickman level iconic. So don't do that to poor Austin Butler, because he did good, but he wasn't, that level. That's like an insane level to reach. But I did really love this movie. Got it on Blu-ray for Christmas. Gonna watch it again. I debated, like, do I need to rewatch this and Challengers to figure out which one's number one? But I did decide to go this because I thought about it. I remember sitting at the theater watching this, and I remember the opening scene when it's silent and they, like, jump off the spaceship and just, like, float down to the ground. And I was like, oh my. I was like, this is different. Like, the first one was good. This one is epic. Like, it just felt different from the get-go. And the rest of the movie followed, and it was... Loved Dune Part 2, the best movie of 2024. Also want to restate, you guys know I don't like horror movies. So if you're like, where's Nosferatu? Of course it's not here. I can't handle that. I can't watch that. Come on, guys. I watched The Northman in 2023. That's about as good as I can do as far as Eggers films. I'm a big baby. I can't watch horror movies. All right, now time to read to you all every movie I watched in 2024. Here we go. In January, I watched 13 Going on 30, Citizen Kane, Anyone But You, The Grand Budapest Hotel, and Whiplash. I want to remind everyone that these, of course, are films that are eligible for Hall of Fame. If I rewatched a film that is already in the Hall of Fame, it was not listed as a film I watched this year. In February, I watched The Boys in the Hood, Do the Right Thing, Zoolander, Little Women, L.A. Confidential, The Beekeeper, 5 Easy Pieces, Iron Man 3, Fantastic Four, and Iron Man. In March, I watched The Gentleman, Cars 2, The Lincoln Lawyer, Dune Part 2, Deadpool, Captain America The First Avenger, I don't know why I said Avengers, X-Men, Psycho, Napoleon Dynamite. April, I watched Aladdin, The Prince of Egypt, A Goofy Movie, Tangled, The Watermelon Woman, Star Wars, A New Hope, and The Other Guys. In May, I watched Challengers, The Fall Guy, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, The Rundown, Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, Heat, Death Proof, Patriot Games, The Phantom, and Furiosa, A Mad Max Saga. In June, I watched Forgetting, Sarah Marshall, Hitman, Black Dynamite, Detective Pikachu, The Bike Riders, and Bad Boys. July, I watched Clue, The Road to El Dorado, Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F., Miami Vice, Jumanji, The Next Level. That was it for July. I don't know why I read it like that. August, I watched Twisters, Deadpool and Wolverine, Easy A, and The Holdovers. In September, I watched Transformers 1. That's it for September. In October, I watched Heavyweights, Rebel Ridge, 22 Jump Street, Meet the Parents, Meet the Fockers, Little Fockers, Dodgeball, A True Underdog Story, The Proposal, Venom The Last Dance, Palm Springs, and Scream 2. In November, I watched Walking Tall, White Men Can't Jump, The Hangover, Gladiator 2. And in December, I watched Wedding Crashers, Limitless, Silver Linings Playbook, and Lara Croft, Tomb Raider. Out of those 77 films, we got 14 movies that are going into the top 14 movies I watched in 2024. Not all of these films are going to the Hall of Fame. So what I do is I literally go through the list and I go, how many of these movies do I feel like talking about? Like I liked them so much that I feel like I need to speak on them. And I mark all this down. I marked down 14. And then I said, okay, how many of these films do I think deserve to go in the Hall of Fame? And so I counted those down. We'll get into that. Now, before we do the top 14 movies I watched in 2024, I do want to read through the Ryan Klinger Film Hall of Fame so we know everything that's in there. So the first inductees, when I created the Hall of Fame, I was like, we might as well just put these puppies in now. First, we have the Spider-Man movies. It is easier to just say all Spider-Man movies, even though I don't think they would all individually qualify, just because I didn't want to spend the time deciding, oh, well, I think Spider-Man 2 is better than Spider-Man 1, because I flip-flop on that, and like how much I like Homecoming compared to those. It's a whole thing, right? So I just put them all in. Indiana Jones. I didn't feel like being like, oh, well, 1, 2, and 3 are in, but Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny aren't. I'm just like, whatever. Just Indiana Jones in general should be there. Beverly Hills Cop 1, that's just definitively there. Probably my favorite movie. I mean, my favorite movie of all time. I just tell people that at this point. I love Beverly Hills Cop. The Lego Movie, childhood favorite of mine. Still love that movie to this day. Perfect movie. And then Moneyball. That was the first inductees in the Hall of Fame. For what it's worth, Spider-Man movies, yes, that qualifies Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse. Those also are in the Hall of Fame. The 2022 Hall of Fame class, we put in 10 movies. It was Megamind, 10 Things I Hate About You, The Batman, Casablanca, Terminator 1, The Shawshank Redemption, When Harry Met Sally, Pulp Fiction, The Wolf of Wall Street, and Django Unchained, which won Movie of the Year for 2022. The 2023 Hall of Fame class, we put in 25 movies. It was RRR, Major League, Seven, Barbie, Forrest Gump, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Mad Max Fury Road, Scream, Creed 3, The Social Network, 21 Bridges, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Creed, Superbad, The Suicide Squad, Pride and Prejudice, Jackie Brown, Mr. Mom, Top Gun Maverick, Reservoir Dogs, Happy Gilmore, Crazy Stupid Love, La La Land, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Die Hard, which is Movie of the Year for 2023. So for 2024, we got 14 movies I'm going to talk about, and we'll get to how many films I'm putting in the Hall of Fame. Quick thing before we get into it, I'm making a major decision. This year I rewatched the Star Wars original trilogy, and I just decided for simplicity's sake, we're just putting Star Wars in. We're just doing it. I know I could argue with myself and say I just want to put the original trilogy in their Hall of Fame, but I got to be honest, I don't think the prequels are anywhere near as good as the original trilogy, but I still like the prequels. And I don't feel like being like, oh, well, I'm putting, Phantom Menace in. I'm ranking it at the 13th best movie I watched, but I'm putting it in the Hall of Fame because I don't feel like doing that. I just don't. I think Star Wars I like so much. I think 7 and 8 would also be in the Hall of Fame. Rise of Skywalker is an abomination to film and is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in the theater. But I'm just putting Star Wars in. If we ever want to do an episode where I rank Star Wars, we'll do that. That sounds great to me. But Star Wars, it might as well be in. It's not like the MCU, where I feel like the MCU movies are different enough. I could quantify, like, okay, this is Hall of Fame, this isn't. But it's like eventually we're probably just going to put all of Harry Potter in, too. Like, if we're being honest. And I'm not doing that right now. We probably end up doing that in the future, too. Because, like, I don't watch... Like, Harry Potter 6 is not untouched. Does that make sense? Like, I can't watch Harry Potter 6 without it being affected by my likening of Harry Potter 5. Like, 1 through 8. Does that make sense? Like, the levels that I like Harry Potter 3 the most. Prisoner of Azkaban is my favorite. But I am comparing my liking of it not to other films, but to other Harry Potter movies. Does that make sense? It would be very difficult for me to properly rank a Harry Potter movie against other movies I watch throughout the year. Whereas like an MCU movie, it's more individualized in my mind. Dune is more individualized in my mind. Like Lord of the Rings is more individualized in my mind. Whereas like Harry Potter and Star Wars, they're just so intrinsically tied to their franchises that I can't even do it. I'd say Indiana Jones is more individualized either, but we already put all those in the Hall of Fame. But like the Spider-Man movies are like that. That's why I put all the Spider-Mans in. Like my enjoyment of Spider-Man 2, the only thing I compare it to in my mind is how much I enjoy the other Spider-Man movies. It would be very difficult for me to compare it to like how much I enjoyed La La Land. Like my mom always says when she listens to this, she's like, I don't understand like how you in your mind like decide how a movie like Happy Gilmore is better or worse than a movie like Pride and Prejudice, because they're just so wildly different in her mind. She doesn't understand like Mad Max versus Happy Gilmore versus Pride and Prejudice versus Forrest Gump. She doesn't really understand like how I quantify what's better than what. And I'm like, well, just what I like the best. And I have really no problems doing that, but I start to when it's stuff like Star Wars and Harry Potter. So we're just putting all Star Wars in. If you really want to know, Empire Strikes Back would have been movie of the year for 2024 if we're doing it like that, like if we wouldn't have done it that way. But I'm just not interested in doing that. I think it leads to less interesting movie of the years. I think it leads to less interesting Hall of Fame classes. So we're just going to put Star Wars, the entirety of Star Wars, as a Hall of Fame induction for 2024. It is unranked. It is just, boom, put in. So that is how we're doing it. A little bit of housekeeping there. Okay, so coming in as the 14th best film I watched in 2024. Keep in mind, this is not going in the Hall of Fame. We'll get into when I put things in the Hall of Fame. 14th best movie I watched this year, it's Iron Man 3. I cut a whole podcast about how I think this movie is underrated. I think this movie is really good. Really like what Shane Black did with Iron Man. Shane Black, very talented director, and he worked really well with the character of Iron Man, the way he likes to make his characters talk, and the way he likes his stories to unfold. I thought it worked well. Not a Hall of Fame movie, not even one of the best MCU movies. I just think an underrated one that needs more credit, so that's why I'm tossing out here. Not in love with the villain, but I am kind of in love with what they're doing with Tony Stark's character in this one, so I like this one a lot. 13 is Anyone But You. This movie was a hit for a reason. I really liked it a lot. Obviously, propelled Sydney Sweeney into the stratosphere along with Glenn Powell. You know, guys know I'm here mostly for Glenn Powell. I'm probably one of the few males that went to this movie that said that. As far as like straight males that went to this movie, I'm probably one of the few ones that said that. But I'm here for his performance. She does well for what it's worth. Part of what makes the movie work so well is their chemistry is so damn good. No wonder the internet thought they were dating. Well, not dating, you know what I mean, like hooking up essentially, based off this movie. Because their chemistry is off the charts, and that's what makes this movie so fun to watch. I think a rom-com is so... I mean, the keys to the rom-com, right? I cut a whole podcast about this back in early on this year. I think it was February or March. it ticks all the boxes, right? Great chemistry between the two leads. It's actually legitimately funny at some parts. You believe the romance. You want to see them get together. And on top of that, it's in a fun location. That's like you're hitting all the keys, right? Might be a couple keys I missed, but it's hitting most of the keys. Anyone But You is really fun. There's a reason everybody was like, oh, yeah, we love rom-coms. This movie is a good rom-com. We love these type of movies. Coming in at number 12 is L.A. Confidential. There was a period where I thought this movie might go in the Hall of Fame. I really love how L.A. Confidential feels like an old-school crime movie that they put in modern day. I really like what Russell Crowe's doing in this movie. It's an interesting character. But really, Guy Pearce is the guy in this who steals the show for me. His character is the best, in my opinion. This is a movie I feel like anytime it's on TV, you got to sit down and watch it. Just an absolute banger of a film. Kind of like the modern Chinatown. I think it's better in Chinatown. I just like what it's doing more. This is a very good candidate that within future years I might end up putting in the Hall of Fame. It might grow on me more and more. As I'm talking about it, I'm thinking about how much I like this movie. It's an old school crime noir that actually made me go and play the LA Noire game because I was just riding that high off of this film. So, coming in at number 11, we got Boys in the Hood. If you know me, you're not surprised that I really liked this movie. Really, really enjoyed this film. Watched it in film class, actually. It's my favorite movie we watched in film class. I liked it more than Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane's good. I don't think it's shit or anything. Not one of my favorite movies I watched this year. Citizen Kane has a lot of big moments, though. Don't get me wrong. But as far as like old classic Hollywood films, my favorite's Casablanca. The Boys in the Hood's. If you have any interest in this film, watch it. You'll like it. Like that's really the best way to describe it. So I'm like, you got any interest in this? Give it a shot. You'll probably enjoy it. It's really good, and I don't really want to talk a ton about the plot because if you don't know what happens, I'm surprised, but I think it's better if you don't. So, also, Lawrence Fishburne is just like throwing 95 miles an hour in this movie. He's really good. And you're also like, oh, yeah, Cuba Gooding Jr., you were really supposed to be something because you're really good in this, too. And I love what Ice Cube's doing in this movie. I really like his character. I think part of the reason I liked his character is because he reminded me a little bit of a friend of mine. And I think that kind of made me like him even more. But I really love what he's doing in this movie, too. So this movie is just great. This movie's really good. I really loved Boys in the Hood. Coming in at number 10 is Meet the Parents. I watched this late in the year. One of those movies that I always thought I'd like. I had caught a lot of it on TV before, like the scene with the volleyball scene all the way up to him setting the thing Owen Wilson makes on fire. I'd caught all that on television before, and so I sat down and watched the whole thing this year, and I really liked it. Debated putting it in the Hall of Fame. Really was high on it. A genuinely really funny movie. Got a lot of awkward comedy, which I don't always love, but I did in this context. I think it's really fun. I love what Stiller's doing. You guys know I'm a very big Stiller guy. I mean, he makes Heavyweights. If you haven't seen Heavyweights, you got to watch Heavyweights. Heavyweights is a great, great fun time. But this is a great Stiller vehicle, and De Niro's great in it too. I really actually think, like, genuinely, one of the underrated performances in this is Blythe Danner as Terry Polo's mom. I think she's really good as the mom. It's on Netflix, apparently. I just saw this. So might have to give it a rewatch. I really love this movie. It just, I don't know, I think it's kind of a perfectly executed comedy. And it's one that I feel like is incredibly recommendable to literally anyone, and everybody will be like, I think there's a joke in here for everyone. I think it's really good. I really like Meet the Parents, so that's why it's number 10. Coming in at number 9 is Walking Tall. This was one of those that I think really sums up 2024 for me. Trying some different movies out. I watched The Rundown early on this year, watching some older rock movies that I'd never seen. I really love The Tooth Fairy. I really like The Game Plan. I love the Mummy with Brendan Fraser and the Mummy 2. Like I've even seen The Scorpion King. I think that movie's pretty fun too. But I've never seen Walking Tall. think it's a remake of like a 70s movie. I think it's based on a true story too. And debated putting it in the Hall of Fame. This movie is gas. If you want just a fun Rambo-style flick with The Rock, watch it. You'll enjoy it. What works about this movie is the fact that there's certain movie types that kind of always work. I think the crime noir type, it kind of always works, I think, for me. The cop that doesn't play by the rules, it's got to solve the case that nobody else can figure out. Like, that kind of always works for me. And I think the Rambo-style movie always works, too. There's just certain movie types that kind of always work. And Rebel Ridge is doing the Rambo type. And I think Rebel Ridge is good. And I really, really loved Aaron Pierre in that. I really loved Don Johnson in that. And the girl from Soul Surfer's in that, too. And she's good in that, too. But I feel like Rebel Ridge kind of... The first 40 minutes of Rebel Ridge is immaculate. And then, like, the last hour 20 kind of loses me, I think. It starts doing a little too much. Like, Rebel Ridge, like, you should have just stuck... You should have just stuck, like, throwing in the strike zone. Like, you started, throwing some curves. You threw in a cutter. You started doing your slider. Like, just keep the fastball in the zone. Stop trying to make them dance. Like, no one's impressed. If they would have kept Rebel Ridge like a crisp hour and a half, it would be in the Hall of Fame right now. It would. But Walking Tall is if Rebel Ridge is an hour and a half. And it's almost a Hall of Famer. Because it doesn't have the depth of Rebel Ridge. Like, because Rebel Ridge does have a couple more characters I like. It kind of scales back, like, the likable characters. Because Johnny Knoxville is, like, the main side character in this. Like, yes, the guy from Jackass. And I think this is a WWE production. I think they helped produce it. Like, it's that early in The Rock's career. And that shows at some parts. Don't know why Stone Cold Steve Austin couldn't have been the main villain. That would have been extra good. He could have played the role. I mean, they went for a white guy with a buzz cut. They could have just made him a white guy that was bald and made him Stone Cold, but... Walking Tall is awesome. If you look up the plot, it's probably on Tubi right now. Watch it. It's a good, like, this is on cable. You gotta catch this one. This is a fun one. I really loved Walking Tall. It was awesome. So Walking Tall, just short of the Hall of Fame, because I really loved Walking Tall. 9th best movie I watched this year. Highly recommend Walking Tall. Coming in at number 8, 8th best movie I watched this year was Twisters. We already talked a lot about Twisters. You guys know I really enjoyed this. Everything you want, like a modern blockbuster, and I love what we're doing with Glenn Powell right now. It's going into the Hall of Fame. That's right, we're putting 8 movies in the Hall of Fame this year. This is the first one. Coming in at number 7 is Challengers. Yeah, this shows you how tight this race was. You guys know I was really high on this movie. The surprise of the year for me. Did not expect me to love this film as much as I did, and I really love it. So it's going to the Hall of Fame. Coming in at number 6 is Dune Part 2. That's right. The 3 best movies from 2024 are 6, 7, 8 for 2024. As you can see, it was really close for how much I like these movies. Dune Part 2 is, I think, one of the best sci-fi movies I've ever seen. And I can't wait for Dune Messiah. If it is even as good, if it's anywhere near as good as this, it's going to be incredible. But the fact that there's a chance it's better is incredible. I mean, I don't know how it could be better. This movie was awesome. It's just a sci-fi masterpiece. And that's why it's going into the Hall of Fame. All right. So we kind of burnt through those because the top 5 are all non-2024 releases. We haven't discussed any of these. So I know we really blasted through those, but that's because we talked about them. We got 5 movies that aren't from 2024 that are being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Coming in at number 5 is one of my favorite movies from my childhood. That's Aladdin. I don't know if Disney has ever made a movie more for me as far as their animated team. Grand sweeping treasure hunting adventure in the first half hour. Second half hour becomes a romance with a lovely princess that I 100% buy. Final half hour, epic battle with a villain that is like delightfully terrible. Like, I think Jafar is underratedly great. And by the way, Robin Williams delivers one of the best animated voice performances like ever. And also, every song is good. This was this and Sleeping Beauty were like my favorite when I was younger. Remember when we did that podcast where I could clearly talk about which animated Disney films I'd seen early on in my life, and I clearly remembered it. I don't know why, but I clearly can. I watched this one a decent way through. I remember I'd seen, I think, like Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, and Beauty and the Beast all before this. I saw this, and this was like a revelation. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. They made one for me. Because like I was obviously fine with them being female leads and stuff like that. You guys know me. I'm completely fine with that. I mean, I love Sleeping Beauty. I say that when the prince is like the main hero, which it's not exactly a strong female lead. I understand that. But you guys know what I mean. Like, it wasn't like I was like, well, I like Aladdin because it's one for the boys. I was just like, oh, this is cool. Like, I like that he's kind of this down on his luck, thief type of guy. I was just talking about this last night. We're going back to Raiders of the Lost Ark for a second because I think there's a lot of Raiders of the Lost Ark that I think once you realize that I watched it at such a young age, I think you understand a lot of these films and why I like them. I think I was thinking about it last night. I think my grandma did a great job introducing me to a lot of these films because she stayed at my grandma's with my cousins and my sister when I was younger. They were all girls. That's why we watched a lot of Disney animated films. And we didn't just watch the princess ones. We really liked like Fox and the Hound. I love the animated Robin Hood film. Whatever year I end up rewatching that will be in the Hall of Fame. I absolutely love the animated Robin Hood film. Just think it's an absolute classic. The song is like Robin Hood and Little John walking through the forest. This song's so good. So good. I forget what old country singer it is that does that music, but he's excellent in that movie. He does the voice of the crow. Not the crow. Yeah, it's a crow. Yeah. Right? Or is it a rooster? It's rooster. It's a rooster. I had to think about it. I was like, no, he's not a crow. You idiot. Oh, my gosh. My bad. No, we're even close. The crow and rooster. Anyways, I think she put me on Indiana Jones at like the age of 4. And I remember when I was younger, I liked Last Crusade more than Raiders of the Lost Ark because I had to look away a lot at Raiders of the Lost Ark. I wasn't allowed to see the scene where the bald guy goes into the propeller, even though it's obviously not that graphic. She didn't want me to see all the blood splatter. And then, of course, I was not allowed to see once the Ark got opened. Like, I remember when Indy's like, close your eyes, Marion. That was me. I had to close my eyes, too. So whenever he said that, I was supposed to close my eyes also. Grandma said I wasn't allowed to see it. And for a good reason. I mean, I remember being like 13, and I was watching Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I was like, oh, shit, I've never seen this. Oh, my gosh. Like, I was like, well, no wonder I wasn't allowed to watch this when I was younger. I wasn't allowed to watch Temple of Doom until I was like 10 or 11. Like, I had to be pretty old to watch Temple of Doom. So that's why Last Crusade was my favorite when I was younger. And I think over time, Raiders become my favorite. But I still love Last Crusade. That's probably why Temple of Doom is like Last Crusade and Raiders like so good. And then I'm like, Temple of Doom, like I really like, but it's not as good as those two. And maybe part is because of the fact that I wasn't allowed to watch it, you know. I think at one point I was maybe allowed to watch the opening scene of Temple of Doom. And then like we turned it off. Like she let me see that. Maybe I'm imagining that. Just because, like, the Lego games. I think this is, like, why I knew what happened. But I think once you understand that, like, at a very young age, Indiana Jones was my hero, and I really liked him. I think you understand maybe why I really liked Aladdin, because I do think they've got a similar lifeblood to them. Aladdin isn't, like, the same character as Indiana Jones, but they do bear some similarities. I mean, Magic Carpet Ride, I think, is like one of the best Disney love songs, maybe the best Disney love song they've ever wrote. I mean, I'm going to spoil a potential thing, but there is another film that is going to the Hall of Fame this year that's higher than this, that is a Disney animated film, and I think it's maybe the only other movie that has a love song as good as this one. If you immediately know what it is, that shows you how damn good that love song is. if you don't know and you think it's Beauty and the Beast, you're wrong. So, what else can I say about Aladdin? I mean, obviously the Robin Williams thing, like he's so good as the genie, and I mean, I don't think I need to explain that to anybody. But I just love the story of this one. I love the Arabian Nights setting. Like I just think it's sweet. I just think it's awesome. Like it's such a cool, unique setting. I don't know why we haven't gotten more stuff like this. It's a dope ass setting. Like it's just sweet. And it leads to some beautiful architecture. And I just think it's cool. And I love watching it every time I watch it. It's honestly, when I was younger, I was like, this was a very fun movie, and I love watching it. And now that I'm older, I'm like, I wish this movie was like 20 minutes longer because I like it so much. That's a good problem for what it's worth. It's good that I wish this movie was longer. I like it that much that I just wish it was longer. So Aladdin, childhood favorite of mine, and I don't still, like, I still love it. I think it's super good. And so that's why it's going into the Hall of Fame. Coming in at number 4, I will say this top 4, I had all kind of jumbled around. Like there was a period where this movie was number 1. And I got to be honest, I'm still not exactly sure whether 1 and 2 shouldn't be swapped. But coming in at number 4 is what I believe is one of the funniest movies of all time. And that's Napoleon Dynamite. Many people always ask me, and by many people, I mean maybe 3. And by ask me, I mean I tell them. What do you think's the funniest movie of all time? And I think for me, it's like I usually say like I think Beverly Hills Cop is for me. I really do. And I'm like, and I know that's crazy. It's not even like a straight up comedy, but to me, I just think it's the funniest movie ever made. And I was like, but maybe Christmas Vacation. And then I think about it a little more, and I'm like, Monty Python's really funny, but I don't think it's as funny as those two. And I'm like, when I say Monty Python, I mean Holy Grail. Then I think about it a little more, and I'm like, wait a minute, might be Napoleon Dynamite. This movie is one of those. I remember there's a friend of mine, one of my best friends, loves the Goonies. So do I. Whatever year I watch the Goonies, it's going to be very high, and it's going to be put in the Hall of Fame. I love the Goonies. He really likes this movie. Sorry, I take it back. There's a friend of mine who really likes this movie, and there's a friend of mine that likes Goonies that doesn't like this movie. And I remember showing it to him, and he just didn't get it. And my friend who really likes this movie, he's like, how does he not get it? I'm like, I don't know, dude. Like, some people just don't find this thing funny. He's like, dude, I think it's the funniest movie of all time. Like, I do too, for what it's worth. But, like, if I show my dad this movie, he thinks it's stupid. My mom thinks it's one of the funniest movies ever made. Like, it's just how it goes. Different strokes for different folks, as they say. But Napoleon Dynamite, I think, is the funniest. I think also what's fun, there's something to be said. It's like super fun when a movie has like no movie stars in it. I think the guy who played Napoleon went on to do a couple other comedies. I've never seen him in anything else. But it's kind of fun when a movie, like, I say this as a guy who like loves Glenn Powell and loves like movie stars, but I think it's sometimes really fun when a movie's just got no actors you've ever seen in anything else kind of ever again, because they're just kind of that character in your mind. Like, he's not, as much as I love, Glenn Powell and I'm going to go see all his movies, a part of him is always Glenn Powell in my mind because he's like that movie star, right? And it's like even Chalamet, when I go see Complete Unknown, he's still part of him, Chalamet, right? Whereas I watched Napoleon Dynamite. That's Napoleon. That's Pedro. That's Uncle Rico. That's his brother. I can't remember his name all of a sudden. That's LaFonda. That's the girl who makes the bracelets with her hair that she does that way. That's the asshole jock. That's the girl who doesn't want to go out with Napoleon. Like that, they're just the characters in my mind. In the dance scene where they play Forever Young and they're just standing there with like all mouth breathing with the lights going around. I don't know. It's just a classic, dude. If you've seen this movie, you understand what I mean. And if you like this movie, you know why. I think it might be the funniest movie of all time. I love Napoleon Dynamite. It is hilarious, and that is why. I mean, there was no question. As soon as I watched this movie this year, I was like, hell yeah, this is going in the Hall of Fame. Now we're going to take a major shift in vibe. Number 3 is The Prince of Egypt. There was a period I thought about putting this number 1. Like I said, the 1 and 2, I flip-flopped on whether they should be 1 or 2. But there was a period I thought this should be the best movie of the year. I mean, I thought this might be my favorite film. I watched the entire year. I mean, the voice cast alone is incredible. I mean, you know what? I'm just going to pull it up because it's just nuts. Here we go. The Prince of Egypt. Voice cast. Val Kilmer, Ralph Fiennes, Michelle Pfeiffer, Sandra Bullock, Helen Mirren, Martin Short, Steve Martin, Patrick Stewart, Jeff Goldblum, Danny Glover. James Avery. James Avery. That's right. Uncle Phil. Rest in peace, Uncle Phil. Yeah, I bet you didn't know James Avery was in this movie. The fact that DreamWorks made this and then turned around and made Shrek 1 and 2, and yet I would put them all on the same level of cinematic classic. Well, I actually think this is better than Shrek 1. But Shrek 2 and this are like both cinematic classics. The fact that DreamWorks could rip that off is why I just love DreamWorks. I like them more than Disney because they just do fun stuff like that. I mean, Disney's got some bangers, don't get me wrong. I love Hercules. Hercules is going to be in the Hall of Fame whenever I watch it again. But just like Aladdin, it's one of my favorites. I remember when I first watched Hercules. Thank you to Miss Bennett, the librarian, for loaning me that VHS. The movie's gas. But getting off topic. Let's talk about The Prince of Egypt. Such important source material. I think adapting the Bible is very hard. I mean, there's no written material that's ever been discussed more or pored over more or studied more. And I think the only thing comparable would be Shakespeare, right? But then Shakespeare is all developed in adaptation. Everybody's got a variation of it. Whereas the Bible, it's a one-to-one. There's no, you're not going to change the story. You know what I mean? There's allusions to it, right? But if you're doing Moses, you can't be I don't know if that makes sense, but it's you don't want to take creative liberties with the Bible. It's just not a good move. I think it's very difficult. Very difficult to do. And the fact I think they nail it at every possible turn is crazy. And my roommate loves Prince of Egypt, thinks it's really good, and he really loves the music. His favorite song is, I think, When You Believe. I think. I'm not actually sure. But my favorite song in this, no, I think it's Deliver Us. I think it's Deliver Us, right? But not even close for me. It's the Plague song. I just think the Plague song is awesome. It's epic. It's grand. It's everything this film is. It's heavy. It's intense. It feels important. And Ralph Fiennes kills it when he sings. He does kind of sound like Voldemort when he sings a little bit. But he does kill it regardless. And the fact that him and I have completely different favorite songs, yet they're both bangers, just shows you something, right? I think it's the fact that we can have completely different ideas of what the best song is, and yet I think both the songs we're talking about are bangers. Shows the depth. The songs in here are incredible, but it's not just the songs. Everything is executed perfectly. There's no jokes in it for a DreamWorks film. It's pretty nuts when you think about what they become known for. I mean, this is the same group that within 10 years they make the B movie. That shows you the wide range we're dealing with here with DreamWorks. And I like the B movie a lot, but it's obviously not doing anything Prince of Egypt is doing. But the Prince of Egypt is a very special film. I think it's really like perfectly done. You guys know I really like Val Kilmer. I think its performance in the original Top Gun is just an absolute masterclass. The gum chomping, right? You know. This movie's special. Every time I'm done watching it, Every time I'm done watching it, there's just something about it. Like I just feel different. I think it's special. It's truly a special film. And it 100% deserves, and 100% is one of the best films I watched this year. It needs to be in the Hall of Fame. Needs to be. So that's why it's going in. Now we get to the top 2 films of this year. My 2 favorite films I watched this year. And these are 2 films that I have watched a lot since I was little. One of them I can remember seeing in kindergarten. I remember when it came out in theaters around Thanksgiving, and I remember when it came out on DVD around Easter. I remember my grandma had it. I was very excited to rewatch it. I really thought about putting this number 1. I decided against it and put it number 2. It's still going in the Hall of Fame. One of my favorite animated films, or just in general, one of my favorite films ever. That's Tangled. Yeah. I mean, so I took a film class last spring, and my professor early on was like, okay, what's a movie everybody's seen? He's like, have you all seen Wizard of Oz? Everybody raised their hand. And he's like, okay. Because he kept having trouble where he would be explaining like a definition of something, like a mise en scène and what that was discussing, right? And he would be like, okay, for example, in this movie, and some people like clearly hadn't seen the movie. So we just continued to go back to Wizard of Oz because he's like, okay, everybody's seen this movie. We can use this as the example for everything, right? When trying to explain what a certain term applies to in a film, right? Near the end of the course, I had rewatched Tangled, and I had brought up to him, I was like, hey, in Tangled, how does this apply? And he starts talking about it, and then clearly, like, another student jumped in and was like, hey, what about this in Tangled? And pretty soon, he was like, wait a minute, how many of you have seen Tangled? And everyone raised their hand. And he was like, oh, I guess we could have just discussed Tangled all the time instead of Wizard of Oz. We could use it as the example. And everybody's like, oh, I love Tangled, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's kind of one of those where I think everyone knows they love this movie, at least everyone my age. Because I think this is better than Frozen. And Frozen was the one that blew up and, you know, made like $1 billion. Well, I don't know if the first one made $1 billion, but I know the second one did. And it's huge. Like, I have a little cousin who's like 2 or 3 right now, and she loves Elsa. Like, Disney threw all their chips in the Frozen barrel. And they're making a Frozen 3, and they made the little Olaf shorts, and, you know, Let It Go is a big success for them, and all this stuff, right? And they kind of just, like, Tangled just exists. I think Tangled's better at every level. And I'm glad that Tangled has went untouched. I really hope they don't start making Tangled sequels. Like, they made a Moana 2 before they made a Tangled 2. Moana released 6 years after the first Tangled. The first Tangled. The only Tangled. Don't touch Tangled, for what it's worth. But, like, you think they made a Wreck-It Ralph sequel. Like, they made sequels to a lot of those movies they busted out. Except Tangled. And I'm really glad they didn't, because I really hope we never get a Tangled 2. I think it's kind of perfect. And I think they see Moana and Frozen, and I'm willing to bet this new Zootopia is going to make a lot of money too. They see those as their big cash cows, and I just kind of hope they forget about Tangled, even though I think it's better than any of those movies. I think out of the Disney, like, modern renaissance they've had, that Princess and the Frog started. I think Tangled's the best one. I think the only one that comes close to my mind is like Wreck-It Ralph, maybe. I think Tangled might be better. Yeah, I think Tangled's better than Wreck-It Ralph. I think Tangled's kind of perfect. It's got a strong female lead without like being like, screw you, Flynn. Does that make sense? Like, I think sometimes they feel like to show that the female is a strong lead, they have to, like, they can't do a romance because they don't know how to show, like, they don't know how to write a romance without the female, like, being in danger or some sort of trouble. Like, I think they struggle with that sometimes. And this film has no problems doing that. Like, Flynn is kind of the joke of the film, but it never feels like over the top. Like, it's perfect. I don't know how they did it. Like, Rapunzel is independent and like is her own character, but yet her romance with Flynn is completely believable, and you never have to take away from her character to pull that off. And the song, like, At Last I See the Light, or whatever it's titled, the one when they're on the boat with the lanterns, that is probably the only Disney like love song that comes close to Magic Carpet Ride. Which is, oh crap, it's called A Whole New World. What, did I call it Magic Carpet Ride earlier? I'm sorry, it's not the Steppenwolf song. I meant A Whole New World earlier. I think I said A Whole New World earlier. I know, like, Kiss the Girl from Little Mermaid's good, and there's a bunch of good ones, right? But Can You Feel the Love Tonight is really good too. Don't get me wrong. I Won't Say I'm in Love. That's a banger. But the best two are Whole New World and this one. The other ones are good, don't get me wrong, but these are the best two in my mind. And you guys know I'm a sucker for the romance because those are the two movies we're putting in the Hall of Fame from Disney so this year, so it's just kind of funny. Also, the title, Elite, like Tangled, and they end up, like, her and Flynn get, like, tangled up together. You know what I mean? Like, they kind of get thrown together. Mother Gothel is just, like, an elite villain. Like, I love the fact that they do a twist villain, but it's not a twist to the audience. We as the audience know she's bad. We understand what's happening. It works so much better with dramatic irony like that. When we know more than the characters, we know she's bad. I think if they made it now, they would not tell us that, and they would want to shock the audience. I don't think it works. I think the fact that we know Mother Gothel's evil makes the narrative work. I think they would miss that if they made it now. I think they would be way too excited to do their aha moment. And I think that's part of the reason the narrative works so well. And if we're really getting down to the meat and potatoes of it, I based a decent amount of my personality off Flynn Rider. I just loved Flynn Rider when I was younger. I thought he was just like the coolest guy. And he was goofy, and he messed up a lot, and, you know, he probably wasn't the most upstanding citizen. He had clear flaws. I just loved him, and I loved the way he cracked jokes. I loved the way he made fun of himself, and his, like, false confidence of himself, and his love for Rapunzel. I really took a lot of that on. I think I really based, looking back, I based a decent amount of personality off of Flynn Rider. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it's worked out all right. At least I hope so. I don't know if anybody who listens to this other than, like, my mom, my sister, and my girlfriend know me personally, but if you do, hopefully you think it worked out all right. And if you enjoyed this podcast, I appreciate you. So, then there's that. But this has been a really long one. And the fact you've been sitting through this means a lot. I love this movie, and if you've seen it, you probably understand why. Also, it works so well because it's like an adventure movie. Like, there's a clear goal. It's a quest. They go there. Stuff goes wrong. There's a big rescue. Like, I mean, come on. I don't even understand, like, I've seen Moana, like, once or twice. That movie's pretty good, but it's, like, nowhere near this. Like, I don't know how Disney's so blind. Like, do they know that this is like one of their best movies ever made? Like, do they realize? I do. I know this. I don't think they realize. I don't think they realize that this is like the best thing they've ever made. I'm glad they don't realize, because it's better for me. I don't want a sequel. Never touch this, please. This movie is like perfection. I think it is genuinely a masterpiece, and it might be Disney's best movie, like from the Disney Animation Group. Keep in mind, Pixar is separate. Like Toy Story, Cars, all that, that's separate. That's Pixar. I'm just talking about Disney Animation. I think this might be their best movie they've ever made, and that's including the 1972 Robin Hood. I don't actually know what year it released. I think 1972 sounds right. That's including that movie, and I love that movie. Tangled's incredible. I almost put it number one. It's going in the Hall of Fame. Coming in at number one is a movie. Yeah, I'm happy with this. I was like thinking about it for a second. I'm like, should we put Tangled number one? Should we make it movie of the year? I'm like, I love Tangled, but this movie needs to be movie of the year. Because I'm being honest, this movie's on cable a lot. I don't think I've ever scrolled past it. That doesn't mean I watch it in full, but I always at least stop to view it. And that is a rare quality that few movies have. I always want to check and at least see where it's at. The movie of the year for 2024 is Iron Man. This is not because it started the MCU. Take all that out. Because I think the fact that this was the start of the MCU has started to make this movie slightly underrated. Because everyone just assumes, it started the MCU. Obviously, it's a banger. Robert Downey Jr. is great as that character, blah, 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 blah. Look at it as an individualized film. Because that's what it was originally released as. Right? They obviously had the ideas for the MCU, but the reason it worked is no one knew, the audience did not realize what this was going to be. The audience just went to go see this movie that looked cool. I mean, summer of 2008, you got this and Dark Knight. I mean, they were... Whew. Anyways, watch it as that, and you're like, holy shit. When you're... And I know I've talked a lot about Raiders on this pod, and I'm completely fine with that because, one of my favorite movies, and I rewatched it last night for the billionth time. I've probably seen Raiders Lost Ark more than any other movie in my entire life. So, when you're watching Raiders Lost Ark, when you think back to the first time you watch Raiders Lost Ark, or maybe not even, if you can't remember the first time, like the first time you watched it in a while, like you hadn't seen it in a while and you rewatched it. There's something about it. Because I think about this, like I'll go through a period I haven't watched it for like, let's say a couple months, right? And if you view it as someone who's never seen it, or you just haven't seen it in a while, it's just got that it factor. There's something about it when you watch the opening. You see the Paramount Mountain become that big, like, mountain, like in real life. And I love the opening of Raiders, how they don't show Indy until he turns around and he whips the gun out of the guy's hand. It's very old school hero filmmaking where you don't show the hero's face for a little bit. You let the audience simmer. They do that in James Bond, the early ones with Sean Connery. They do that. I think it's in Dr. No with the poker scene. They do the same thing. I love when they do that. That or it's Goldfinger. It's one of those two. They do that. I think it's Dr. No, though, just because Dr. No was the first one. Oh, yeah, you just wait till the year we do a James Bond. I watch a lot of James Bonds in a year. We're going to have like 5 movies go in the Hall of Fame because I will not be putting James Bond as a collective in. Those movies are more individualized in my mind, so Yeah, me and my BS rules are going to go crazy with the Bond films because I refuse to put them in as a collective. They will be separate because in my mind the Hall of Fame is so funny to me because I have all these little rules for myself and I enjoy it greatly. Hopefully it's not like, as a viewer, you're not just like, what the hell is he doing? But anyways, back to Iron Man. This is movie of the year for 2024. I got to give it its props. When you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, like I said, there's something about in that opening where you're just like, it just clicks and you're like, I get it. Like, it just feels like you're watching a classic. I think Die Hard has the same thing. I think around the part where he's on the mic, like he's on the radio with Hans. They're jabbing back and forth. And he says yippee-ki-yay, right? I think you're just like, yeah, I get it. And maybe it's not that scene. Maybe it's the scene when he throws the guy out the window. He says, welcome to the party, pal. I'm not exactly sure which scene it is for you. But there's got to be a point in Die Hard where you're watching and you're like, yeah, this is a classic. Like, you just feel like that. I don't know how to describe it. Like, there's something about it special. I think few films have that quality. I'm trying to think of other movies because I love many movies. You know, I really love Moneyball. Moneyball doesn't have that. Moneyball doesn't have that moment where you're like, it's classic. There's something about it where I think it's the idea where it's the lead is so charismatic and they're inventing something unique. And whether you've seen it before, or you've seen it for the first time, you know that archetype is special. I think that's what's going on with Indiana Jones and Die Hard. Is Bruce Willis is so charismatic in Die Hard, and he is inventing kind of this new archetype you're going to see a million times after. And whether you had seen the archetype before you saw Die Hard or the Die Hard was the first time you saw it, you knew it was special. And Indiana Jones, same way. Iron Man has that. Robert Downey Jr. in this movie gives that performance that's special. And you know you're going to see it again and again and again. And we're seeing that in some modern films. Like, people are trying to be like this smooth, slick Iron Man style. I mean, Limitless is kind of that way to a point, right? There's elements of the Tony Stark character, I think, and what they're doing in Limitless. I don't think that's too much of a reach to say. Iron Man's got something special to it. And if you just watch it if you watch it as a greater part of the MCU, absolute banger. But if you watch it as an individualized film, you're like, this movie's immaculate. Like, Favreau killed it from a directorial perspective. And everybody in this movie is throwing 100 miles an hour. Paltrow is perfect as Pepper Potts. Gwyneth Paltrow kills it. I mean, it's weird to say this because, like, obviously he did not continue to play the role. And, it's been a bit of a weird cycle with him. But Terrence Howard's really good as Rhodey. I like what he's doing. I mean, in my mind, that is now officially like Don Cheadle in my brain. But he's good in this first movie. Like, I think he does a good job with what he's given. And then Jeff Bridges as Obadiah Stane. I think a lot of people are like kind of out on that anymore as his villain, but I love his villain. I think he does a really good job. I like that villain. I mean, the little earpiece thing he has, I think is just a fun plot device. But obviously, who we're going to talk about here is Robert Downey Jr. I mean, the role that made him one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. If not the biggest star in Hollywood. Now he's got an Oscar win from Oppenheimer. I love those Sherlock Holmes movies. Highly recommend the Guy Ritchie Sherlock Holmes movies with him and Jude Law. Rachel McAdams, those movies are good. But this performance is special. This movie's special. And if you watch it tonight, you're going to love it. There's a reason this kickstarted one of the most successful movie franchises of all time, one of the most popular movie franchises of all time. And there's a reason that everybody still wishes the MCU could be as good as it once was, because this movie's special. The MCU used to just be a machine for creating these fun original stories. And now it feels like they're a machine for trying to get you to watch the next movie. And I think the DCU is going to potentially try to go back to this, and this is what I miss. And maybe that's part of the reason Iron Man is the movie of the year for 2024, is because I wish that the superhero movies would go back to this, because I think the rest of the industry is starting to figure it out. We're getting these original films. We're getting these movies that are even not all original. Some of them are adaptations like Dune, but we're getting these movies that are trying to do something a little different. I like that. And we're getting these original films that are really good. I mean, we still got some stuff that's like, we still got the Mufasa movie coming out. Like, we're not constantly winning. But I do think there's some stuff to look forward to, and I think Iron Man is a truly special film of its time. I think it's a movie that time will be very kind to. I think in like 40, 50 years, people are going to be like, yeah, I really love that Iron Man movie. I think, the MCU, there's going to be some movies that are kind of washed away to the sands of time. I don't know if that many people are going to remember Ant-Man. I really like the first Ant-Man. I don't think that many people are going to watch that in 40 years. But if you said which MCU movies you think will be watched in 40, 50 years, I don't think Infinity War is probably one. I think Infinity War makes a lot more sense if you're a fan and you've seen them all. It's going to be the ones that are more individualized, that are probably more beloved in 40, 50 years, that can be seen as more separate films. I think the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy I would point to. I don't even think Winter Soldier, just because I think you got to have enough backstory of Bucky, so I don't think it works. I think it's really the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy is like the main thing I'd point to. And then Iron Man 1 is like the one for me. I really do. I think that first Avengers film maybe, because I don't really think you technically need to see the other movies to really watch that first Avengers film. And I think that first Avengers film is quite special. And then Black Panther, of course. I mean, for obvious reasons. That first Black Panther movie is really good. But Iron Man 1 might be the pinnacle of like the individualized, what are they going to watch in 40, 50 years? I think Iron Man 1. I think Robert Downey Jr. is a star for a reason. This movie made him that star, and this movie works because of him. I think it only works with him. I can't see anyone else's role. And I just think this movie's awesome. And if you watch it tonight, you'll go, yeah, this movie's perfect. From top to bottom, it is funny. It is thrilling. It's got drama. It's got romance. It is genuinely an excellent movie. Like a genuinely excellent movie. And the fact that it just happens to be the start of the most profitable movie franchise in history is crazy. I think it's made it slightly underrated. Few movies feel as special as this. Like, I struggle to find a movie that just feels... And I think some people write that specialness because of the fact it started the MCU, and I don't think so. I think there is something here that is individual to this film that's just perfect. So that's why Iron Man is the movie of the year for 2024. That's why it's going to the Hall of Fame. So that's it. That is officially the Hall of Fame ceremony for 2024. And now we wrap up, after the look behind, to the look ahead for the most anticipated 2025. Before we do that, let's look back at last year's Sort of Sportys to see what was my most anticipated films of this year. Woohoo! Yay! Hooray! Here we go. At 11, I had Kung Fu Panda 4. I didn't even go see that. I just kind of lost interest once I saw further trailers. I was like, oh, I don't think this is going to be what I want it to be. At number 10 was Transformers 1. I did really like Transformers 1. There's a period I thought about making it in the top 5 of 2024. Just ended up missing out. I did really like it. I actually think it was better than The Fall Guy. I didn't give it an honorable mention. I gave The Fall Guy an honorable mention. Maybe Transformers 1's a little... I don't know. It was really good. I really liked Transformers 1, so that was good for me. Number 9, Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Still haven't seen it. I'm sure I'm going to love it. Probably going to see it within the next week or two. Number 8 was Argyle. I just heard terrible things, and I didn't even take a chance. It wasn't even like mixed. Like, people were just like, wow, this is awful. People just said it was so bad. And so I was like, okay, I guess I won't even take a chance. So, number 7 was Gladiator 2. I was very happy with this movie, so yeah, makes sense. Number 6 was Hitman. We already talked about Hitman. Number 5, Coyote vs. Acme. I was really disappointed to hear about how this movie has been scrapped. I really wanted to see this. We do have a new animated Looney Tunes movie coming out in February. It's called like The Day the Earth Blew Up or something like that. I'm excited for that, but I am disappointed that this film disappeared. So, number 4, I should say more on that. Why? I don't understand. Like the Warner Brothers thing. I mean, there's a billion YouTube videos about how Warner Brothers scrapping this film is a completely stupid move. But I just want to restate, it is really dumb, and I really wish they would release this film because it's really frustrating. So I just really wanted to see it, and I think it's dumb that they're doing it. They basically scrapped the film for a tax write-off. It's just like, what the hell are we doing? Number 4, Dune Part 2. Oh, but they could release Joker Folie à Deux. Well, I guess in the same sense, the first Joker is insanely profitable, but people hated that Joker movie. Like, I think people would have messed with Coyote vs. Acme. Number 4 was Dune Part 2. You guys know I was hyped for that. 3 was The Fall Guy. 2 was Mad Max Furiosa. And number 1 is Beverly Hills Cop Axel Foley. I was most excited for that just because I just hoped by some chance it could be the Top Gun Maverick of Beverly Hills Cop films. It was not. I didn't hate the movie. I just didn't love it. It was just kind of whatever. I think it's better than Dial of Destiny for what it's worth as far as legacy sequels. I don't think it's as good as... I don't know, is it as good as like Force Awakens? Maybe. Probably not. I really like Force Awakens. I don't think it is. So there you go. It was. I'm not insulted by it like Rise of Skywalker. Like I think that movie's awful. I don't think it's a masterpiece like Top Gun Maverick either. I think it's whatever, and that's okay. Don't make any more, please. Like please, don't make any more. Because I don't want to see it. So coming into this year, there's a lot of movies I'm really excited for. But I only wrote down 13. I didn't write down Captain America, Brave New World. I'm 100% going to see that. But I just this year tried to write down movies I'm genuinely really looking forward to. Like I can't wait to see. Like I'm excited. Genuinely excited for. That's a lot, because last year I was more so just writing down stuff that I was interested in. Like, I was intrigued by Argyle. I wasn't, like, excited for Argyle. This year, I was like, okay, if we do stuff I'm just interested in, it's going to be a long list. Plus, I'd like to just tighten up and make the most anticipated more so, like, movies I really, really, really want to see. I think that's more fun. I think it's more interesting. I think that's just better overall. So that's what we're doing this year for my most anticipated movies of 2025. There are 13 movies. Like I said, I'll probably end up seeing Captain America Brave New World. It's on the list. I'm not really that excited for 28 Years Later just because I'm not a horror movie guy. I think it's going to be pretty spooky, scary. I'm not into that. Like, I might go see the new I Know What You Did Last Summer. But, like, once again, I'm not like, oh, I can't wait. Like, I really am just picking films that, like, I'm genuinely very excited for. So that's what I'm going for. Coming in at number 13, we have F1. This is from director Joseph Kosinski, the guy who directed Top Gun Maverick. It stars, his name is Damson Idris. He's from Snowfall, but the lead is Brad Pitt. If you haven't heard of this, look up the trailer. You'll be like, whoa, that looks awesome. You're telling me the guy who made Top Gun Maverick is doing a film about, Formula One? Yeah, it's going to be an adrenaline overdrive. If it can have some semblance of a fun or interesting plot and characters, we might be in for one of the best movies of the year. If he can make, because all the car stuff's going to be awesome with his directing style. If he can make a legitimate drama out of it too, it's going to be amazing. Very excited. I love the movie Ford vs. Ferrari. This obviously isn't the same thing, but I'm saying similar vein in just the sense that car racing movies can really lead to some interesting drama. I mean, hell, there's a ton of Fast and Furious movies. I'm kidding. But I think F1's going to be really good. I'm very excited. I think this might end up being like a huge hit if he gets this right, and Kosinski's going to put his name in like the top level of directors if he gets back-to-back major hits. I think this could really be something. Number 12, Kendrick Lamar and the South Park guys made something. Don't know what this is going to be. This is the one that I'm more so and intrigued by. I tried to keep the list of stuff that's like I really, really want to see, because there's a chance this is something like I'm not interested in, but I think there's a really high chance I am interested in this. So it was one of those I felt like I had to include. Love Kendrick Lamar. I really enjoy South Park. I wouldn't say I'm a massive fan, but I do think they're geniuses. the guys who write it. I think it's Parker and Stone. I think it's Matt Stone, and I forget the Parker guy's first name. But they're geniuses. Kendrick Lamar's a genius, so it'll be very interesting to see what they do. It's going to be some sort of comment on American culture. And I'm ready to be intrigued by it. Number 11 is The Smashing Machine. Oh, boy, I'm excited for this one. The Rock is apparently trying to act. From one of the Safdie brothers is making this movie. Going to be a decent amount of movies this year where it's like, hello, I want to be an actor now. Because The Rock's in this, and Jacob Elordi is going to be in Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein film. Keeping an eye on that one. I'm not a Guillermo del Toro fan, nor am I a Jacob Elordi fan. But if that movie gets really positive buzz and everybody's like, yeah, Jacob Elordi is inserting himself in that Timothée Chalamet, Austin Butler level, then I might have to see that just out of necessity. But it's not on the most anticipated because I'm only going to see it if like people are like, you need to see this. But Smashing Machine, I legitimately am very excited for. The Rock is really trying to act, apparently. And that's intriguing to me. Number 10, Avatar, Fire and Ash. I think the Avatar movies are pretty good. I think they're really fun to see in theaters, so I will be seeing this in theaters. Who knows if I'll ever watch it again. I haven't watched Way of Water again, but I really loved it when I saw it in the theater. I really enjoyed what I saw. I think I put it as the 5th best movie of 2022, if I'm remembering correctly. Let's check back on the 2022 Sort of Sportys. Yes, I did. So, yeah. Clearly, I do like I liked Avatar 2 much more than Avatar 1. And I think if he can keep this up, maybe Avatar 3 will be even better. I don't know. James Cameron, how long do you have to do this until you make a new Terminator film? Because you said you're ready to make one to show everybody how evil AI is. And I think that'd be fun. So please do that soon. But I know you have 3 more of these to make. Well, 2 more after Fire and Ash. You said there's 5 of these. But let's see where this story takes us next. I'm intrigued. I probably need to rewatch the second one because I'm sure there's plot points I'm forgetting. But I enjoyed it when I first saw it. I just think these are fun. Like, you go to the theater, everyone sees it, you talk about it. That's it. I think it's weird how, like, Avatar has, like, no cultural significance until, like, 2 months before the movie and then, like, 2 months after. Like, it just goes through, like, a 4-month period of being, like, the biggest movie in the world and everyone sees it, and then everyone collectively forgets about it. And then it comes back and everybody's like, oh, yeah, I guess I'll see that. It's, like, the weirdest franchise of all time. It'd be like if Star Wars had no fan base, but everyone just went and saw it. It's the weirdest shit ever, but it, like, appeals to everyone, but no one's a fan. The only fan I've ever seen is Nathan Zed on YouTube, and props to him. Number 9 is Zootopia 2. Now, here I am. I don't know why I made this sound like Rocky Like a Hurricane, but here I am dogging all these Disney sequels, but yet I'm eagerly anticipating Zootopia 2. Well, guess what? That's because I think that movie's story could actually lend itself well to a sequel. I do think it could work. You can just kind of do fun buddy cop movies with those two, Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde, for multiple films, and I just think they're a fun duo, and I feel like that actually has legs, and so I'm not as insulted by its existence as if they made a Tangled 2. Tangled. What am I saying? Goodness, this has been a long one. I've loved it, but goodness, this has been a long one. Yeah, I'm excited for Zootopia 2. I'm gonna see it. Genevieve and I are gonna see it, and I'm gonna enjoy it. If I don't enjoy it, I'll be heartbroken. But number 8 is Thunderbolts. Yeah, that's right. I am anticipating this significantly more than Captain America Brave New World. I think it was Captain America Brave New World. I feel like I know what I'm getting into. With Thunderbolts, I'm like, oh, I am excited that Harrison Ford is in Brave New World for what it's worth. But Thunderbolts is one of those where it's like, it's such an odd choice to make this movie with this set of characters that I feel like they have to have something good cooking up. Like, there's no way you just do this to do this. Like, there has to be some sort of interesting reason they wanted to make this movie. So that's why I'm here for it, is because I feel like there's got to be some reason they wanted to make this. So they must have something interesting up their sleeve. It's like, I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised. So that's why I'm looking forward to it. At number 7 is Happy Gilmore 2. Got a trailer on Christmas Day, bit of a little teaser. All that matters is that Shooter is back and Gilmore is back, And I love Happy Gilmore. My favorite comedy movie. It's just like a straight up comedy. Well, I guess Napoleon Dynamite's up there too, but those are the top two for me. Those are the best, and so I'm very excited for Happy Gilmore too. I know it's just you like this movie, so here's two. I understand that, but guess what? I think this will be fun. I hope. If it's, I don't know. I actually think Happy Gilmore 2 can have some legs. I actually think this could work. I really do. Like a Lego sequel for Happy Gilmore, I think I could actually. I also feel like Sandler respects the fact that this is one of his most iconic movies, and so I think he actually is going to put some extra effort into this one. I really do. Am I being too hopeful? Probably, but I honestly believe this is going to have something to it. At number 6, The Running Man. Edgar Wright is remaking The Running Man. I probably should watch the Arnold Schwarzenegger one. I'd probably enjoy that in preparation for this. I think the old Family Feud host was in that movie, if I'm remembering. Richard Dawson, right? Is that his name? Is Steve Harvey going to be in this one? Imagine it's this serious sci-fi movie, and then it's Steve Harvey's in it. But anyways, Glenn Powell's the lead, so I'll be seeing it. I'm excited to see what he's going to do in this one. It's going to be fun to see Glenn in a sci-fi movie. Very excited for that. Oh, I need to watch Devotion, too. That's the other Glenn movie I got to get done. But very excited for The Running Man. Very excited. So that's number 6. Number 5, Jurassic World Rebirth. All right, so Gareth Edwards is directing a Jurassic World movie. This is going to be a soft reboot of the franchise, which is good because Jurassic World Dominion is one of the worst films I've ever seen in theaters. Borderline The Rise of Skywalker level insulting. I actually like The Last Jedi for what it's worth, but borderline Rise of Skywalker level insulting. Jurassic World Dominion is so terrible. So terrible. Not that Fallen Kingdom was a lot better. Goodness. They really fell off a cliff after the first one. The first one's pretty good. I'm surprised they didn't just take it back to the Jurassic Park branding. Is the world branding really that much stronger at this point? Maybe they just didn't want to change up the names of the rides at Universal, but I think the rides at Universal are Park, aren't they? Maybe they built new rides that are World. I don't know. But Gareth Edwards is directing it, which gives me a lot of faith. I saw The Creator mostly because I thought it looked like an interesting sci-fi movie, and Gareth Edwards had directed it. I don't know why I said mostly. That is the entire reason I went and saw it. And it was pretty good. It wasn't incredibly special to me, but I do think he's very talented. I think he directed Rogue One, which I really like. Didn't he direct Godzilla? Yeah, he directed Godzilla. That's what I thought. Yeah, he directed Godzilla 2. Not Godzilla 2, Godzilla 2 isn't also. The 2014 one. Isn't Aaron Taylor Johnson in that too? Yeah, that's what I thought. Just funny. We were talking about Aaron Taylor Johnson earlier. Yeah, but Gareth Edwards is directing the new Jurassic World. Apparently, it's going to pull back a little more to the horror stuff, which I'm actually excited for, even though I'm not a horror guy. I do think Jurassic World works well with that. So it's going to be a soft reboot. Scarlett Johansson's in it. Jonathan Bailey is apparently one of the leads. And Mahershala Ali is in it. So that's pretty cool. Mahersh is probably not screwing around because he's in this. So it's probably going to be pretty damn good. And I'm very excited. We got to pack July. Because it's this, and the week after Superman, then 2 weeks after that, Fantastic Four. There's rumors they're going to delay Fantastic Four, though. I don't know if that's true or not. They might. I don't know if that's really true, but we'll see. Coming in at number 4, Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. Oh, I love the Knives Out movies. I love Benoit Blanc. I love everything Craig is doing with this character. I recently watched Lara Croft Tomb Raider. That movie is really bad. But him and Angelina Jolie, I really liked their casting. I think Jolie was a great choice for Lara Croft. I think she fits the role of Lara Croft very well. Daniel Craig is way too good to be in that movie. And he apparently didn't enjoy being in that movie, but he's really good in it. And it's a very different Craig role. He kind of plays a bit of a slimy, kind of greaseball guy, but he's really good at it. And I'm like, why did we never get more of this? Craig is so talented. I've gotten to the point, I'm like, is Craig one of the top 10 most talented actors in Hollywood? He might be. I think Craig is supremely talented. And obviously it was a great Bond, but we almost, now we're finding out, this guy might be incredibly tooled. Like, he might be a 5-tool player, like to take a baseball term, right? And we thought he was just Bond, and it's like, no, we were wasting his time with Bond. Like, when like obviously it's Bond, and that's awesome, and he get to be Bond, and that's the coolest shit ever. Don't get me wrong, but I am saying there's part of me. It's like, did we waste his time with Bond? Like, he's so good. Like, he's so good as Benoit Blanc, and he was so good. Like, he can really act, and he was just in that new Luca film. I keep saying Luca because I cannot pronounce his last name. I need to practice pronouncing his last name. It's Guadagnino. Not exactly sure. Guadagnino. I need to practice. See. I think it was called Queer, right? Anyways, the guy who directed Challengers. He was in that with the guy who plays Rafe in Outer Banks. And I'm sure he was good in that. Like, Daniel Craig is just, come on. Daniel Craig, come on, man. Take a bow. You probably have. You're a very good actor. I'm sure you did stage. But yeah, new Knives Out, you knew that was going to be a top 5 most anticipated movie for me. Like, come on. The cast is obviously full of a bunch of stars, but I'm just here for Benoit Blanc. Ryan Johnson can make 10 of these, and I'll watch them all. I love these. Can we pump them out any faster? Can we put them in theaters? That's my 2 goals. Put them in theaters, pump them out faster. That's what I'd love. So, Wake Up Dead Man, the new Knives Out. It's going to be awesome. Coming in number 3 is a movie that I am highly anticipating, and I'm sure I'm one of the few people that is, but very excited. Guy Ritchie's newest movie. Apparently he's working on this other movie that might come out before this. There's a chance this doesn't even come out in 2025. There's a chance this comes out in 2026. John Krasinski, Elisa Gonzalez, and Natalie Portman in The Fountain of Youth. Don't know anything other than the fact it's Guy Ritchie, Indiana Jones style movie. He does this right. I will absolutely adore this film. You guys know, we were talking earlier about types of movies that always work for me, like the Rambo type. I'm always at least intrigued. Same thing with like an old school crime noir film. Like a modern version of an old school one, that's even better. Right? Indiana Jones ripoffs, I'm always at least slightly intrigued. I mean, I watched all that Lara Croft Tomb Raider film. And I was like, oh, you are nowhere near like as good as... This might be the worst Indiana Jones ripoff I've ever watched. Like, you get absolutely cooked by The Lost City and Sahara and National Treasure. Like, you're not even close to the goats of Indiana Jones ripoffs. I mean, National Treasure is so good that National Treasure kind of created its own little genre where it's like, oh yeah, Indiana Jones is like the adventure romp, and National Treasure is like a little more modern, and you know, National Treasure kind of even made its own thing. Like, National Treasure, like a top tier Indiana Jones ripoff. Romancing the Stone is just... I don't even know if it's Indiana Jones ripoff as much as like it was taking from the same source, but like it was looking at the same adventure jungle films that Spielberg was at the time, and so they kind of ended up feeling similar. They're both homages to similar things, just Indiana Jones repurposed them better. But Fountain of Youth, you said Guy Ritchie and Indiana Jones ripoff. I was there. I mean, come on. Guy Ritchie, I think maybe this year I'm going to watch more of his films going into 2025 because I do really love his movies. And, yeah, very excited for this. Can't wait. Oh, maybe this will be the true Uncharted film. Coming in at number 2 is Fantastic Four: The First Steps. Well, not The First Steps, sorry. Fantastic Four: First Steps. I think there's a chance here Marvel can pivot and make Pedro Pascal's Mr. Fantastic their new Iron Man, make him the new main part of the universe. I really think that could be the piece here. This is the Marvel movie I really can't wait for. I think I am not really looking forward to Doomsday and Secret Wars. I'm going to watch them. I'm going to be in the theater. Let's be honest. But at the end of the day, I'm very concerned with the path Marvel's going down of just... I don't think we're making any new interesting stories. We're just kind of relying on old pieces. It's like, have they lost their ability to create new tales, new things? You know what I mean? I'm very concerned by that. And I think Fantastic Four, to me, is ticking all the boxes. And to me, feels like we're going to do something new. We're going to do something original. And it's going to bring back that MCU that we all love. And that's what I'm really looking forward to. I think this is a key year for the MCU. And that's not just because Superman's coming out this year. And I think Superman's going to be a big hit. I think the MCU needs to... Like, it's not just from that like competitive perspective. I just think the films they're releasing this year are very important. So, Fantastic Four: First Steps second most anticipated movie of this year. And you know what number one is, baby. It is 2025. It is officially the year of Superman. I have been so pleased with the positive feedback from that trailer. It's been all over the place. Everyone I've showed it to really liked it. I cannot wait. This might be the most excited I've been for a movie in my entire life. Last time I was excited for a movie, probably Spider-Man No Way Home was like last time I was really hyped up for a movie. Then before that, it was like an Endgame and Infinity War. And then before that, it was probably the Lego movie. And I was pretty excited for Civil War too. But this movie might be the most excited I've ever been for any movie, period. I know there's a lot riding on it, but I really think it's going to be good. I think people are going to connect with it. And I was concerned, is the general public interested in a Superman movie? And I've been pleasantly surprised by all the buzz the trailer got that they are. And I cut a whole hour-plus podcast about the trailer. You don't need me to talk about it more. Just now, this whole year, I am absolutely ecstatic that I'll be watching the Superman movie later this year. So, new Superman movie. Cannot wait. July 11th, 2025. I'll be there. It's going to be awesome. Disappointed the Batman Part 2 is delayed, not going to lie. But we'll live because we got Superman coming out this year. That is it. That is officially the 2024 Sort of Sportys. This is my favorite podcast to record every year. It always goes way longer than it should. And I appreciate anybody who listens to this, all 67 subscribers, or if you listen to me on Spotify, thank you. Anybody who listens to any of these, even if you listen to a snippet or you listen to the whole thing, I appreciate each and every one of you. I love doing this. I appreciate you checking me out. If you have any interest in checking out my YouTube channel that I make my videos on, make sure you do that. If you don't have any interest, don't worry about it. I appreciate you stopping by. Hopefully you enjoyed the 2024 Sort of Sportys. I was getting ahead of myself because in 2025, we're going to have Bryce Young, starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, coming in the house. I'm going to get a hold of Bryce and say, Bryce Young, for me, please, come on, buddy. I know you're busy because we're going after the Super Bowl this year in your second year. Yeah, that's right. Calling my shot. Get down here. Will you host the Sort of Sportys real quick for me? Please, Bryce. Hopefully he says yes. He seems like a great guy. Anyways, that is it. I will see you all next year. If you only stop by for the Sort of Sportys, that is really funny to me, but I really appreciate it. So anyways, that's it. Thank you all. Iron Man is movie of the year. Can't wait for Superman to be the best movie this year. If Superman is movie of the year for 2025, that'll be the first time a movie that released in the year of was movie of the year. So that would be pretty wild. I'm not going to bank on that happening because that would be insane. I got a lot of movies I'm really excited to see this year. Plus, keep in mind, that who knows what I'll watch that didn't come out in 2025. This might be the year I watch Kill Bill. This might be the year I finish watching all Tarantino films, and I rank them. Who knows? Very excited. But I need to get going. This has been a long one. Thank you all for listening, and I appreciate it. I'll see you all next week for NFL playoff predictions.